Chapter 737. When Di Tian was comprehending the picture scroll and unsealing the immortals, the experts from the War Immortal Palace arrived in the royal sacred sect. Just like what Li Mubai had predicted, the War Immortal Palace was still preparing to interfere in the battle in this particle world. Within the royal sacred sect, all the experts, including Immortal Han, came out to welcome the experts from the War Immortal Palace. There were over 10 immortals in this group, and each of them had an immortal halo revolving around them, glowing with immortal light. After stepping into the Immortal Foundation realm and becoming an immortal, the aura of stellar martial cultivators would undergo a transformation. In fact, they would even have a unique halo around them. This halo was naturally released by their bodies and wasn't intentional. Some people would retract their halo to make themselves look ordinary. Immortal Han. In the center of these experts from the royal sacred sect, there was an extremely young-looking expert. But just from the faint halo of light around him, one could tell that he was an immortal-ranked expert. Evidently, he wasn't as young as he appeared on the surface, but this also indicated that the time he spent in the immortal-ranked realm was shorter compared to the others. Hence, he appeared younger. Naturally, there were also some who cultivated unique cultivation arts that allowed them to look younger. Here. Immortal Han replied. You said that an immortal sword with a spirit appeared in this particle world? That young man asked. Yes, senior brother. This sword is like a demon and is controlled by a little fellow at the celestial phenomenon realm. He basically has no way to unleash its full power and lent it to a second-level Immortal Foundation cultivator. Also, I can sense that this sword has its own spirituality. Immortal Han spoke. The eyes of the young man flashed with sharpness. When Immortal Han informed him through the immortal sense he left in the War Immortal Palace, he decided to personally make a trip to this particle world. Immortal-ranked weapons were already extraordinary, and those that had spirituality were even rarer. For immortal-ranked weapons that had spirituality, it meant that they had the potential to grow stronger and could evolve. The allure of such a weapon was simply too strong. He had no choice but to make a trip here personally. I heard from Zai Jiang that this particle world is an ordinary world with nothing special about it. To think that there would actually be a spirituality weapon here. How unexpected. An expression of interest appeared on the young man's face. There were countless particle worlds around the immortal realms, and the vast majority of them had already been excavated by experts of the immortal realms. Not all particle worlds were useless. On the contrary, there were some unique particle worlds that were extremely famous. Among these famous particle worlds, there were some that gave birth to countless geniuses who were innately suited for cultivation. For example, there were some unique particle worlds where the people of the particle worlds all had extremely high innate talent, such as spatial affinity. There were also some particle worlds that gave birth to many powerful weaponsmiths who were innately proficient in forging. The people of these particle worlds all had a strong tradition of forging. The royal sacred region could be considered an extremely ordinary particle world. This was why no one paid attention to it. I was also very surprised and even got hit by a sword. If it wasn't for my reaction being fast enough, I might have fallen in this native world. Immortal Han sinisterly stated. Back then, he had truly been in a perilous situation. Even at the same cultivation level, there were differences in combat prowess. He and Li Mubai were at the same cultivation level, but in terms of combat prowess, Immortal Han had always been one of the most outstanding among his peers. He didn't expect Li Mubai to be so powerful as well, especially after borrowing the power of the demon sword. If they continued fighting to the death, the one to die would definitely be him. Enough talk. I don't have time to waste on this barbaric place. Where's the sword? Let's go get it. The young man coldly spoke, his voice filled with a domineering aura. He led the experts from the War Immortal Palace here. The sword naturally belonged to him. As for the original owner of the sword, it was no longer important. I will bring senior brother there right away. Immortal Han spoke. Let's move out. Let's go. The silhouettes of the group flickered as they soared through the air, transforming into beams of white light. Numerous spatial scars actually appeared in the air, not even having the time to dissipate. From this, one could very well imagine how fast their speed was. In the sacred royal city, many people inclined their heads and stared at the sky. A powerful astral wind tore through the air, churning the clouds, but they couldn't see any silhouettes. How fast? Who are these people? How strong are they exactly? Many people could only see shadows when they sensed the wind. That should be the sacred emperor of the royal sacred sect. Seems like they are going to act again. Right now, many people in the sacred royal city were already numb. The war between the royal sacred sect and the medicine sovereign valley far surpassed their imagination. Right now, for those below the sacred emperor and medicine sovereign level, they didn't even have the qualifications to participate in the war. In order to prevent meaningless casualties, the medicine sovereign had even temporarily disbanded the medicine sovereign valley. In the medicine sovereign valley, on an ancient peak, Limubai and the others had always been there. But at this moment, Limubai's countenance drastically changed. With a wave of his hand, a flying boat appeared in the air. Limubai directly pulled Qin Wentian and the others into it. Not good, let's go. Limubai exclaimed in shock. The medicine sovereign also instantly boarded the flying boat. After which, he took out an immortal talisman and infused it with immortal light. Resplendent spatial energy enveloped them, and in an instant, the group of them vanished from sight, reappearing at a location a few thousand miles away. After they reappeared, they had no intentions of stopping. That flying boat shone with immortal light as they sped forward with great speed. The people from the War Immortal Palace have indeed interfered. Not only that, there are quite a few of them. Limubai didn't feel too surprised. From their actions, he could tell that they had long been prepared. The moment they sensed something was wrong, they immediately fled. You guys won't be able to escape. A voice drifted over from afar. The countenances of Limubai and the medicine sovereign drastically changed. They also have spatial-type treasures. They locked onto our spatial fluctuations and directly teleported over to kill us. Limubai was very knowledgeable in the immortal realms. He naturally understood what was going on. If not, he wouldn't have controlled the flying boat to advance at such a high speed. Qin Wentian's expression was extremely unsightly to behold. He turned his head and stared behind, only to see beams of immortal light flashing behind him. Fast, their speed was too fast, so fast that he couldn't even see the appearances of those people clearly. He also had several spatial scrolls on him, but in the face of such speed, they were completely useless. The teleportation distance of his spatial scrolls couldn't even be compared to the teleportation of others. Senior, let me lead the way. As long as we can delay them for a period of time, everything will be settled soon. Qin Wentian spoke in a loud voice. Limubai glanced at him. Okay, you lead the way then. Quick, quick. The medicine sovereign was also anxious. This flying boat was a speed-type treasure and was already very fast. However, his opponents were the same as them, possessing speed-type divine treasures. There was basically no way for them to widen the distance between them. Kill. Immortal Han had a cold expression on his face as a terrifying blood-colored glow radiated from him. The experts below inclined their heads and stared at the sky only to see a towering blood-colored light sweeping over them. Many people below were directly transformed into blood mist as they exploded. After which, the blood chi from their corpses gushed towards Immortal Han. How vicious! Mo Qingqing turned pale when she saw this scene. This Immortal Han was too vicious, he actually killed his way through the air. Go to the air. The medicine sovereign spoke. Limubai immediately controlled the flying boat and soared up into the air. Immortal Han malevolently spoke, I already said you guys won't be able to escape. Little brat, your sword isn't bad, my senior brother has taken a liking to it. As for that woman, this seat has taken a liking to her. You better obediently hand her over and I will leave your corpse intact. As Immortal Han slaughtered, his voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears, causing Qin Wentian's expression to turn malevolent. You will die. Qin Wentian spoke in rage. As expected, These experts from the immortal realms basically didn't care about the lives of the people of their particle world. They were all cruel and cold. Soon, we will arrive soon. At this speed, we won't need too much time. Qin Wendian silently mused. He could sense the location of the other body. Based on this terrifying speed, it wouldn't take too long before they arrived. I will die. Are you talking in your sleep? Immortal Han coldly laughed. Qin Wendian, back then you were too full of yourself, thinking that you can become enemies with my royal sacred sect just because you have the support of the medicine sovereign. You only have yourself to blame for everything that happened today. The sacred emperor Zai Xing coldly spoke. Your other friend should have already been brought away by her clan to the immortal realms. How would those major characters who are familiar with the Eastern Sage immortal realms still remember a genius from a country bumpkin world like you? Only by killing you would I be able to sever all contact with you. If I don't kill you, I won't be able to rest easy. The sacred emperor was naturally referring to Qing. That person had once threatened the royal sacred sect, but sadly, she was brought to the immortal realms and no longer bothered with Qin Wendian. It was unknown if it was because Qin Wendian had disappointed her when the Dongxing Heaven Emperor accepted him as a disciple. In any case, if Qin Wendian was alive and went to the immortal realms, he might still be able to contact her. But if he died, all contact would be severed. Also, back then you almost had the chance to join the tutelage of a supreme existence. You truly shocked me. Sadly, you were abandoned in the end. Numerous voices drifted into Qin Wendian's ears. This genius that the sacred emperor initially didn't even place in his eyes had truly shocked the sacred emperor. This was why he was saying these words now. Not good. If this continues on, we will soon enter the range of their attacks. The medicine sovereign's eyes flashed with a ruthless light when he saw the distance between them being shortened. I can't hold on any longer, I will delay them. You guys leave first. Don't. Qin Wendian shouted. It's almost over, just hold on a little longer. Little brat, focus on your cultivation in the future. Your future lies in the boundless starry space. Also, your background might be extraordinary as well. I should have died long ago. Now that I'm able to fight for you, it can already be considered a perfect ending. The medicine sovereign patted Qin Wendian's head, revealing for the first time that he had a connection with Qin Wendian. Senior medicine sovereign, it's almost over. Trust me. Qin Wendian knew that the medicine sovereign didn't believe him. After all, what strength did he, Qin Wendian, have to contend against experts from the War Immortal Palace? It's already too late. The medicine sovereign saw that his opponents were already attempting to attack, and they had almost succeeded. The time of your deaths has arrived. Immortal Han's cold voice rang out. The blood light had already extended to the flying boat, yet at this moment, the medicine sovereign flung Qin Wendian's hand away. He stepped out as boundless immortal fire blazed around him. Chapter 738. No. Qin Wendian turned pale when he saw the medicine sovereign disregarding everything and walking out himself. Master. Mo Qingqing was similarly pale. Both of them turned their heads and stared at the immortal flames in the air. Senior, please stop. Qin Wendian roared at Li Mubai. Bzz. Li Mubai ignored him. He stared at Qin Wendian. The medicine sovereign spared no expense to create an opportunity for you. Are you really not going to leave? Senior, send me back. Qin Wendian's gaze was filled with determination. Send me back as well. Mo Qingqing added. Fine, I'm used to enduring humiliation in the immortal realms. I no longer have any hot-bloodedness. Li Mubai's eyes flickered with a smile. With an intention of his will, the flying boat abruptly turned and flew back the way it came from. In an instant, it returned to where the medicine sovereign was at. Over there, the medicine sovereign was already fighting against the experts from the War Immortal Palace. At this moment, the medicine sovereign radiated a towering destructive aura, causing those experts from the War Immortal Palace to feel trepidation. They actually returned. Are they courting death? Immortal Han laughed maniacally when he saw the flying boat returning. Li Mubai, you bastard! The medicine sovereign cursed. Old man, it's rare for us to find our hot-bloodedness again. Don't be so angry. Actually, Wentian is right. Although the immortal realms are fascinating, it's also somewhat stifling. Li Mubai laughed as sword chi towered up into the sky. Let's return to our homeland for our final battle. How hot-blooded. The young man in the lead from the War Immortal Palace had a look of disdain on his face. Boundless immortal light radiated from his fist as a towering immortal might gushed forth, an ant trying to shake a tree, simply courting death. Wait a minute. Qin Wentian walked up. Didn't you guys want the sword? I'll give it to you. Just take it. After speaking, Qin Wentian flicked his hand, tossing the demon's sword towards his opponent. Upon seeing this scene, the destructive aura from the young man didn't erupt forth. He stretched his hand out and caught the demon's sword. The demon's sword hummed, as though it was unhappy. As expected, the sword gained sentience. A look of joy appeared on the young man's face. He caressed the sword as a dazzling light flickered in his eyes. Follow me from now on. He doesn't deserve to have you. The young man smiled faintly. At this time, Qin Wentian was burning with anxiety. They were almost there. He had to stall for time. Swords and women, are you willing to give them to me? Immortal Han laughed maniacally, turning his gaze onto Mo Qingcheng. In the immortal realms, he didn't have the qualifications to lay his hands on such beauties. But in this country bumpkin world, wasn't it all up to him? I'm afraid you can't bear it, Qin Wentian said coldly. Ha, are you joking? Immortal Han stepped out as a cold aura permeated the air. After which, a terrifying devouring light manifested as a destructive might enveloped Qin Wentian. Do you think you can live just by handing over the sword? Even if you hand over the women, it won't be enough. Your blood chi will be mine, and these people will all die, said Immortal Han arrogantly. Stop talking nonsense. Kill them all. If you want the woman, you can keep her. The young man loved the demon's sword so much that he couldn't bear to part with it. He no longer had any interest in the woman. For people in the immortal realms, strength was always the number one priority. Only with strength would one have the qualifications to enjoy. Right. Immortal Han nodded. The two generations of sacred emperors stepped out as killing intent gushed forth from them. You shouldn't have returned. The medicine sovereign sighed. If Qin Wentian died, how could he face those people? Senior Sword Saint, use your sword chi to protect us. Qin Wentian spoke. Li Mubai nodded his head as beams of immortal light transformed into a screen of swords, enveloping everyone, not allowing Qin Wentian to be killed. Everything should end now. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He stared at his opponent as he spoke, people from the War Immortal Palace, you are not worthy enough to wield this sword. Also, in this royal sacred region, the name of the royal sacred sect will no longer exist in the future. Qin Wentian's voice suddenly turned incomparably arrogant. This scene caused the experts from the War Immortal Palace to start as expressions of interest appeared on their faces. However, after that, the young man frowned. Something's wrong, what was that aura? He could feel that they were all locked onto. Everyone here was locked onto. What's going on? Immortal Han's countenance changed as a terrifying aura enveloped him. Bzzz, 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 bzzz. Beams of immortal light flashed, each one so bright that it was blinding. In just an instant, numerous figures descended from the sky, descending unceasingly. In just a short instant, tens of people had already appeared and the number was still increasing. Bzzz, 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 bzzz. More and more experts appeared, the atmosphere in this space was stifling. These people were all shrouded in immortal halos, they were all immortal foundation experts. What's going on? Isn't this an ordinary country bumpkin world? Why would so many immortals suddenly appear? The eyes of the young man in the lead from the War Immortal Palace froze. For a country bumpkin world like the Royal Sacred Sect, it was impossible for them to have so many experts. The 2 generations of sacred emperors were stunned as well. Immortal Han's arrogant smile froze on his face. These experts were clearly targeting them, their auras locked onto them. Not only for them, even Li Mubai and the medicine sovereign were stunned. Nobody knew of Di Tian's existence. Earlier, Qin Wentian kept saying that he would arrive soon, but they didn't believe him. They also didn't understand why Qin Wentian would say this. However, the scene before their eyes directly caused them to be dumbfounded. When they thought back to the words of Qin Wentian earlier, were these experts related to Qin Wentian? We are from the War Immortal Palace of the Immortal Realms. I wonder if we have disturbed you all. The young man in the lead clasped his hands at the crowd. His tone was much more courteous, and there was no trace of the arrogant attitude he had before. Among the immortals, a figure wearing a bronze mask and clad in metal armor slowly walked over. Only his eyes were exposed, and they were incomparably cold. That pair of pupils seemed to be different from ordinary people. It was a pair of extremely unique eyes. This mysterious man might very well be the leader of these immortals. Sorry for disturbing you. The young man from the War Immortal Palace spoke to Di Tian, who just appeared. Di Tian's gaze slowly turned over, landing on Qin Wentian. The 2 of them were originally the same person, he was none other than Qin Wentian. However, this secret couldn't be revealed. Hence, he still had to put on an act. You have arrived. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the hearts of the experts from the War Immortal Palace trembled. This calm voice sounded like it belonged to a friend of many years. How should we deal with them? Di Tian coldly asked. He naturally already knew how to deal with them. Kill them all without mercy. Qin Wentian slowly turned his gaze over, staring at the young man from the War Immortal Palace as he icily spoke. I've already said it. You won't be able to wield this sword. He then turned to Immortal Han, you will die very miserably. Finally, his gaze landed on the 2 sacred emperors as he coldly spoke, from today onwards, the Royal Sacred Sect shall be removed from the Royal Sacred Region. The hegemon of this particle world shall belong to the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Your foolishness has caused the death of a member of the Royal Sacred Sect. Kill them all without mercy, don't leave a single one alive. Qin Wentian's icy voice rang out, causing the experts from the War Immortal Palace to feel a chill down their spines. The eyes of the experts from the War Immortal Palace shifted over, staring at the bronze-masked Di Tian. He should be the one giving the orders, right? Sir, we can discuss things further. If we have offended you in any way, we can make it up to you. Di Tian's eyes were cold as he spoke. His words are what I wanted to say. Kill them all without mercy, don't leave a single one alive. It's been a long time since I exercised my muscles. A cold laugh rang out. This entire space transformed into a world domain, filled with fiery red ancient vines that enveloped the entire space. The ancient vines directly shot towards the experts from the War Immortal Palace. The others also unleashed their immortal might. At this instant, the experts from the War Immortal Palace all had looks of despair on their faces. These people were so powerful, some of them even established multiple immortal foundations. We are people from the War Immortal Palace. Do you guys really want to do this? The young man roared. He stared at Qin Wentian as he coldly threatened, I don't care who these people are. You better think clearly about the consequences. Qin Wentian's countenance was ice cold. He stared at Di Tian and spoke, in that case, let's show them if their War Immortal Palace dares to stand against us. Right. Di Tian nodded. Everyone, come out together then. Ha, how arrogant. What power is the War Immortal Palace? Brazen laughter rang out as a stifling pressure gushed forth. In this world domain, more and more experts appeared. Tens, hundreds, there were even more, densely packed together. This entire world seemed to be filled with Immortal Foundation experts. The young man from the War Immortal Palace trembled. The two sacred emperors from the royal sacred region felt their bodies go soft, unable to muster any strength. How can this be? How can this be? Where did these experts come from? My heart. Li Mubai swallowed his saliva, feeling his throat going dry. He stared at Qin Wentian as a strange light flashed in his eyes. Where did this fellow befriend him? How could he be able to command so many Immortal Foundation experts? Could this be the sect Qin Wentian mentioned to him before? That's right, back then Qin Wentian mentioned the matter of him taking Qin Wentian as his master, but he didn't explain it in detail. Not only for Li Mubai, the medicine sovereign thought so as well. Seems like this little fellow still had some secrets. Kill, don't leave a single one alive. I want this man to die 1,000 times over. Qin Wentian pointed to Immortal Han as he spoke. Immortal Han's countenance turned as pale as paper. Right. The immortals laughed as they rushed over. The experts from the War Immortal Palace stood in the middle, their bodies trembling. They even forgot to resist. How could they resist? Many of their opponents had higher cultivation bases compared to them. In terms of numbers, they could easily drown them. This was already sufficient to contend against the entire War Immortal Palace. I really died in a particle world. I actually died in a particle world. The young man from the War Immortal Palace was incomparably enraged. He stared at Immortal Han and the old sacred emperor Zai Jiang as he roared, "You two bastards, causing me to die here. Arg, I can't accept this. I still want to pursue a higher cultivation base." His talent in the War Immortal Palace was considered extremely good. He was very young, but his cultivation base was extremely high. Yet, he died so mysteriously in a particle world. His heart was filled with boundless reluctance, but his fate was already sealed. Chapter 739. Qin Wentian's countenance was ice-cold as he stared at the destructive beams of light shooting towards them. He didn't feel any sympathy at all. In the eyes of these people from the immortal realms, the people of this particle world of the royal sacred region were existences they could kill as they pleased. Even when they were chasing after them, Immortal Han was still madly slaughtering them, devouring their blood and qi for his own use. This was simply too cruel and evil. Qi. There was an Immortal Foundation expert who was proficient in saber arts who was extremely powerful. A blood-colored devil saber glowed with terrifying runic light, and every time he slashed out, a terrifying diagram of slaughter would appear. The people from the War Immortal Palace couldn't even withstand a single saber strike from him, all of them died one after another. Arg! That young man went crazy when he saw this scene. His Immortal Foundation radiated boundless immortal light. You want to self-destruct? The countenances of the immortals were cold. One of them blasted out with a palm strike, instantly causing an icy river to descend from the heavens. The entire world transformed into a world of ice that resembled diamonds. The translucent ice crystals sealed the young man within. You still want to self-destruct your Immortal Foundation under such circumstances? That person snorted coldly. After that, he blasted out with his palm, slamming into the ice crystals. A crisp cracking sound rang out as the entire space shattered together with the ice crystals. The body of that young man from the War Immortal Palace also shattered as he was directly killed. There were 9 levels of Immortal Foundation, and the disparity between each level was extremely great. This young man had already established a 6th level Immortal Foundation and was extremely powerful. How could that young man with a 3rd level Immortal Foundation compare to him? Chi! A light sound rang out as Immortal Han screamed in agony. That young man slashed out with the saber light from hell, sliced off one of Immortal Han's arms, directly tearing it apart. Immortal Han stared venomously at Qin Wentian as he howled in madness, "Even if I die, I will curse you. You will die a graveless death and your woman will become the plaything of others. Senior, don't let him die so easily. Slice his body piece by piece, slice by slice, slice by slice." Qin Wentian's eyes turned cold. That saber-wielding immortal spoke, "Fine, this punishment is extremely painful. Let him have a taste of it." As he spoke, he slashed out with his saber. This saber strike directly penetrated into Immortal Han's body, lacerating his bones and muscles. "Ah!" Immortal Han screamed. "You don't care about other people's lives, and you're cursing me? You deserve to die a horrible death." Qin Wentian's voice was emotionless. That saber-wielding expert slashed out again and again. Immortal Han's screams rang out unceasingly as he endured the most terrifying torture. He couldn't die even if he wanted to. "Kill me!" Immortal Han howled. He was truly in despair, this pain was too unbearable. He no longer had any hope of survival, he only wished for death. "When you slaughtered at will, did you ever think that this would happen?" The medicine sovereign walked up and stared at Immortal Han. His countenance was as cold as ice. Immortal Han deserved to die. Even such torture wasn't sufficient to atone for his sins. Those disciples of the Medicine Sovereign Valley who were killed by him, as well as the innocent people of the royal sacred region, would never be able to come back to life. "Medicine Sovereign, we are willing to submit to you. Please spare us." The strength of the sacred emperor could be considered one of the weaker ones, yet no one actually dared to kill him. They merely locked him there, watching as the experts of the War Immortal Palace died one by one. His trembling body told everyone that he was truly afraid. Even if he was an immortal, a hegemon of an era, he would still feel fear when facing death. He was the hegemon of the royal sacred region, the sacred emperor that controlled everything under the heavens. But at this moment, his life was no longer in his hands. "Spare you? Dream on." The medicine sovereign coldly spoke. His silhouette flickered as he instantly appeared before the sacred emperor. A terrifying immortal fire blasted into the body of the sacred emperor, causing the sacred emperor to struggle violently. The medicine sovereign retreated and with a thunderous boom, the body of the sacred emperor directly exploded, leaving behind a trail of destructive fire. Very swiftly, other than Immortal Han, everyone from the War Immortal Palace had been killed. Immortal Han was still being tortured, only then did Qin Wentian speak, "Finish him." "No problem." That saber-wielding expert chopped down with his saber, cleaving Immortal Han into two, directly shattering his immortal foundation. Because of this, the group of cultivators from the Immortal of War who were arrogant earlier had all died. Not a single one was left alive. Who? Li Mubai didn't act at all. He had experienced many battles in the immortal realms, and had also witnessed some battles from afar. But when he personally participated in a battle, this battle was undoubtedly the most shocking. It was truly a case of coming back from death's door. Several hundred immortals, where did they come from? Di Tian, is there anything else you need us to do? The red-haired old man stared at the masked Di Tian as he asked. "Many thanks to seniors for helping out. For now, there should be no other matters. I will have to trouble all of you." Di Tian's voice contained a unique sharpness, like his mask and armor, giving off an extremely cold feeling. The Di Tian at this moment caused all the immortals to feel a sense of pressure. Although he was still very young now, it was highly possible that he would inherit the War Immortal Palace in the future and become a character that stood at the peak of the immortal realms. "Di Tian, you are too polite. We just came out and we can already exercise our muscles and bones. This is exactly what we wanted. It has been so many years before we could breathe properly. It's all thanks to you. What does such a small matter count for? Who else do you want to kill? Just tell us and we will do it right away." That saber-wielding expert straightforwardly spoke. Regardless of Di Tian's potential or the kindness he had shown them, they felt that they should be on good terms with the current Di Tian. "Indeed." Di Tian replied. "Di Tian, if the War Immortal Palace is a power from the immortal realms, we might still suffer from repercussions after killing so many people earlier." The red-haired old man spoke. "How about this, since you said that there's nothing wrong, we can set our hearts at ease. However, we will still leave a strand of immortal sense in this particle world. We will leave our immortal sense wherever you want us to. If a power from the immortal realms comes for revenge, our immortal sense will appear, and as long as they aren't too strong, they wouldn't dare to act impudently. After all, it's very normal for a sect in the immortal realms to have their members killed when they went out to temper themselves. Unless it's a descendant of the sect leader, they wouldn't dare to take revenge. Senior's words make sense. Di Tian nodded. After which, he turned to Qin Wentian. Although they were one person, now that he had transformed into Di Tian's body, he mustn't let others know about this. In that case, it was better for his true self to say some things. Wentian, what do you think? Seniors, please follow us back to the Royal Sacred Sect. After we destroy them, we will announce to the world that the Medicine Sovereign Valley will be the hegemon of this world. Seniors, please leave your immortal sense in the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Qin Wentian spoke. Right, we have no objections. Everyone nodded. This young man seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with Di Tian. Also, his aura was similar to Di Tian's in the past. There was a high possibility that they were blood brothers. Michum, let's move out then. Di Tian spoke. A moment later, the group of them moved towards the direction of the sacred royal city. On the way, Di Tian walked to the side of Qin Wentian and passed some interspatial treasures to Qin Wentian. These were the spoils of war they plundered from the experts from the War Immortal Palace. Those immortals didn't want them and gave them to Di Tian. As for Di Tian, he was preparing to follow the old man from the War Immortal Palace to roam the myriad of particle worlds. If he needed resources, he could just open his mouth and ask the old man for them. Hence, it was more appropriate to leave the spoils of war to his original self. In the Royal Sacred Sect, the various factions gathered together and waited in a gigantic training ground. They were waiting for the Sacred Emperor and the experts from the War Immortal Palace to return in victory. This battle would be the doomsday of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. From now onwards, there would no longer be a Medicine Sovereign Valley in the Royal Sacred Region. Everyone in the world would understand who was the hegemon of this world. At this moment, a silhouette flickered over. Zai Yan stared at that person as he coldly asked, "Have you found them?" "Nope, the Forgotten Immortal Tower seems to have completely disbanded. They didn't move out as a group." That person replied. During these few days, everyone's attention was on the war. Nobody would have thought that the Forgotten Immortal Tower would actually secretly disperse their forces. By the time they discovered this, they only managed to capture a small number of people. Damn, after this matter is over, we must definitely capture them back and distribute the beauties of the Forgotten Immortal Tower to the various factions. Zai Yan's voice was ice cold as he continued, "This entire world belongs to my Royal Sacred Sect. I really want to see where a bunch of females from the Forgotten Immortal Tower can run to. Haha, this time around we are in luck. There are still many beauties in the Forgotten Immortal Tower and all of them are extremely hot and spicy. We have to properly control them." An expert from the Qinghua Mountain coldly laughed. "Let's wait and see, this matter will be concluded very soon. The Sacred Emperor and the others will return in victory soon." Zai Xian was very confident. How could the people of this particle world stand a chance against the War Immortal Palace? They were all dead for sure. They were all waiting, feeling extremely agitated in their hearts. The Heavenly Sacred Sect's position as the hegemon of the Royal Sacred Sect was constantly being challenged and they had no way to eradicate the Medicine Sovereign Valley. This caused them to be extremely unhappy. Now, everything would finally be over. "You won't be able to wait for them." An ancient voice drifted over, resounding through the airspace of the Royal Sacred Sect. At this instant, the hearts of countless people in the Royal Sacred Sect pounded violently. After which, a stifling pressure descended from the skies. From afar, several silhouettes appeared. Each and every one of them was so powerful that it caused one to feel stifled. "The Medicine Sovereign, it's the Medicine Sovereign. There's also the Sword Saintly Mubai." The countenances of the experts from the Royal Sacred Sect instantly turned as pale as paper. How could this be possible? The War Immortal Palace was defeated. Where did these experts come from? Numerous figures descended. The medicine sovereign, Li Mubai, Qin Wentian and the others were all here, coldly staring at the experts from the royal sacred sect below. This is impossible. Where are the experts from the War Immortal Palace? Zai Xian's countenance turned ashen. They were all panicking in their hearts. The experts from the various factions were all panicking. Many of them were trembling uncontrollably. They are all dead, vanishing forever. However, they don't care about loneliness. Very soon, you guys will accompany them. The royal sacred sect proclaims themselves to be the hegemon of this world. Could it be that the entire world belongs to your royal sacred sect? This sentence ends here. From today onwards, there is no place for the royal sacred sect in this world. As long as it's someone from the royal sacred sect, kill them all. Qin Wentian's cold voice drifted down from the heavens, there was no mercy in his heart. The victors were the kings while the losers were vilified. An era has ended. Chapter 740. The royal sacred sect had governed the world for tens of thousands of years. They boasted that the entire world belonged to them and there was no one they couldn't kill because they had the strongest combat prowess. They were arrogant and tyrannical, treating the lives of the people of the world as grass. Their sacred prince Zai Xian was high up in the air, disregarding everything and everyone, calling the people of the royal sacred region country bumpkins and helping the immortal realms to capture the maidens of the sacred royal city. Everything would come to an end on this day. An era ended. Zai Yan, Zai Xian and Zai Qiu were now prisoners, awaiting their trial. As direct descendants of the royal sacred sect, as the descendants of the sacred emperor, how glorious and tyrannical were they. Zai Qiu even invited Qin to hunt them down, disregarding everything. But today, they could only wait for death. At this moment, Zai Xian, Zai Qiu, and the others all had stupefied expressions on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian in the air. Zai Qiu's countenance contorted, he had no way to accept this situation. Originally, he should be the one looking down on Qin Wentian, dictating his life. Why did things become so ridiculous? Who are you guys exactly? Zai Yan stared at the immortals in the air as he roared. There's no need for you to know. The masked Di Tian coldly replied. Kill them all. Right. The immortals laughed. That saber-wielding expert was the fastest. With a simple slash, it felt as though it wanted to split the heavens apart. With just a simple slash, everyone in the path of the saber-wielding expert was instantly annihilated, causing the experts of the royal sacred sect to be so frightened that their guts were about to shatter. Only now did they realize that death had already arrived. No, please spare us. We are only a subsidiary power of the royal sacred sect. Senior, please spare our lives. At this moment, some of the powers started to beg for mercy. In front of absolute destructive might, facing the god of death, fear involuntarily rose in their hearts. The first to beg was none other than the leader of the Qinghua mountain. How spineless! A cold voice rang out. After which, a blood-red long spear directly pierced through his head and frenziedly shot out, wanting to kill everything in its path. How could begging be of any use? Back then, when they were helping the royal sacred sect to annihilate the medicine sovereign valley, would they even beg for mercy? Let's settle this quickly. A person in the air coldly spoke. After that, a gigantic palm imprint grabbed downwards. In an instant, the vast space around them turned into diamond-like ice crystals. Shatter. With a wave of his hand, the ice crystals shattered, and the frozen figures inside were all shattered and destroyed. Even Qin Wentian, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but gasp. The gap between realms couldn't be made up for. No wonder people in the celestial realm were called celestials. They could ignore anyone below the celestial realm. Once they reached that level, people below them were already vulnerable. Although there were countless experts in the royal sacred sect, they were like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds in an instant. They were here to welcome the triumphant return of the experts from the War Immortal Palace, but what awaited them was a true doomsday. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the vast royal sacred sect was in shambles, with no signs of life at all. Fresh blood dyed this hegemon of the world red. The hegemon of this world yesterday had been razed to flat ground today. Who would have thought that such an ending would occur? If the people of the royal sacred sect could think of this, they wouldn't have offended Qin Wendian back then, choosing to recruit Qin Wendian and nurture him with all their might. Even if Qin Wendian wasn't willing to join the core faction of the royal sacred sect, if he joined the battle sword faction, he would still be considered a member of the royal sacred sect. If that was the case, the ending would be completely different. However, the matters of the world were always so mysterious. As the hegemon of this world, how could the royal sacred sect care about a mere world? A single wrong thought could cause the entire building to collapse. From today onwards, the royal sacred sect would no longer exist in this world. In fact, whether this world would still be known as the royal sacred region was a question. The new hegemon, the Medicine Sovereign Valley, would the shadow of the royal sacred sect still remain in this world? Qin Wendian and the others directly turned and departed from the royal sacred sect. This place would become history, a symbol of the destruction of an era. After they left, there were people secretly observing the situation of the royal sacred sect from afar. Upon feeling the deathly stillness, there were more and more people who dared to enter the royal sacred sect. When they saw the wreckage and dried blood on the ground, they only felt their hearts pounding violently, as though they were being hammered by a heavy object. The shock they felt was indescribable with words, as though their souls were about to leave their bodies. The royal sacred sect has been destroyed. A person stood there in a daze as he mumbled. Someone inclined his head and drew in a deep breath as he roared to the heavens, "The royal sacred sect has been destroyed." His voice was like a bell that signaled the end of an era, ringing throughout St. Royal City and the entire royal sanctuary. Hence, the news of the royal sacred sect's destruction spread to every corner of this world at the fastest speed in history, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. A hegemon of an era had been destroyed. In fact, there were even people who didn't dare to believe this. They inclined their heads and stared at the sky as they mumbled to themselves, "Has the royal sacred sect really been destroyed?" It seemed like it. Because everyone was passing on the news of the royal sacred region's destruction. The sacred royal city was in an uproar, the major powers of the royal sacred region were in an uproar, the 9 great sects, the aristocratic clans, ancient countries, all of them were trembling. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the Battle Sword sect, the royal clan of Yi, all of them had smiles on their faces as they stared in the direction of the sacred royal city. After that, they all departed from their respective locations, heading towards the direction of the sacred royal city once again. Not only them, the various aristocratic clans, ancient countries, and great sects all gathered in the direction of the sacred royal city. In fact, there were many people who didn't belong to any sects or clans, all of them headed towards the direction of the sacred royal city. These people gathered together like a terrifying tidal wave, akin to the might of the entire world. The destruction of the royal sacred sect, the rise of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. This was the irresistible trend of the world. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley had returned. The aristocratic clans, ancient countries, and great sects all came to pay their respects to the new hegemon. The people of the world came to observe, to witness the destruction of the royal sacred sect, and to witness the rise of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. The sacred royal city was unprecedentedly lively. Countless people entered the sacred royal city, it was even more bustling compared to the era of the royal sacred sect. Today, outside the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the leaders of the various aristocratic clans, ancient countries, and great sects all arrived, paying their respects at the same time. It was just that out of the 7 great clans, the Di clan and Qi clan were missing. They died together with the destruction of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. At this moment, several female silhouettes walked out, arriving at the bottom of the stairway leading to the Medicine Sovereign Valley. The Tower Lord of the Forgotten Immortal Tower is here to beg for Senior Medicine Sovereign's forgiveness. Before this, our forgotten immortal tower had already separated from the royal sacred sect, which was why we were able to survive the previous battle. Right now, we are here to beg for Senior Medicine Sovereign's forgiveness. The forgotten immortal tower reigned in the horse at the precipice of the precipice. What crime did you commit? In the future, don't commit any unrighteous acts. Go. An aged voice drifted over, causing the members of the forgotten immortal tower to have excited smiles on their faces. They were all extremely happy. Initially, they were still filled with trepidation. They didn't expect that Senior Medicine Sovereign would forgive them so easily. The Medicine Sovereign Valley was truly different from the Royal Sacred Sect. Many thanks to Senior Medicine Sovereign. Many members of the Forgotten Immortal Tower knelt on one knee and bowed before retreating. After they left, the Tower Lord spoke to a female beside him, Fan Miaoyu, why don't you join the Medicine Sovereign Valley in the future? Since you are acquainted with Qin Wentian, there shouldn't be any problems if he introduces you to him. Fan Miaoyu was none other than one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, the only female among them. But I'm not that familiar with him either. Fan Miaoyu's beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light. When she inclined her head, she only saw someone smiling at her from afar. This person was also a female, and was even more beautiful than her. It was none other than the #1 beauty in the world, Lin Xian from the Celestial Maiden sect. She came as well, Fan Miaoyu mused in her heart. Lin Xian's relationship with Qin Wentian wasn't bad at all. After the Forgotten Immortal Tower left, the various powers all went up to seek an audience with Senior Medicine Sovereign. The sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect didn't come out, but Lin Xian was the one who requested an audience. All of you can leave. The Medicine Sovereign Valley won't be like the Royal Sacred Sect, dominating the world. The Medicine Sovereign will remain the same as before, hoping that this world will become stronger. You can all leave now. The aged voice was calm, causing everyone to draw in a deep breath. Senior Medicine Sovereign was truly an extraordinary character. But even if the Medicine Sovereign Valley didn't dominate the world, it was still the uncrowned king. There was no need to doubt this point. Xian lass, come in and accompany Qingqing for a chat. That voice drifted over again, causing many to be silently envious of Lin Xian. Seems like the relationship between the #1 beauty and Qin Wentian had taken effect. Although the Medicine Sovereign said that Mo Qingqing wanted to see her, the one who wanted to see her was still Qin Wentian. After all, they were friends. The various powers dispersed one after another, but none of them left the sacred royal city. They were still waiting to see the direction of the wind. After a long time, the Medicine Sovereign Valley was still as calm as before. Only then did the enthusiasm of the people in the sacred royal city fade away as the various powers left the sacred royal city. Everything returned to a state of tranquility. The end of an era. Right now, it was transitioning to a new era. However, the people of the world were still working hard in their cultivation, fighting each other, pursuing their own paths of cultivation. In the Grand Xia Empire, when the people of Grand Xia learned that the Medicine Sovereign Valley had dominated the world, they were all filled with emotions. They naturally heard of Qin Wentian's name and knew that the most important person in this war was none other than Qin Wentian. In fact, there were even rumors that the person who played the most important role in the destruction of the Royal Sacred Sect was none other than their emperor, Qin Wentian. However, the person who controlled this storm, Qin Wentian, was currently living an extremely peaceful life. He didn't care about the matters of the outside world, he was calming his heart and quietly watching the winds and clouds change. This world was merely his starting point. Chapter 741. The destruction of the Royal Sacred Sect told the world that no matter how powerful a hegemon was, there would still be a day of destruction. There was no such thing as an eternal existence. As to why the Royal Sacred Sect was destroyed so early, it was naturally because of its many unjust actions, hastening its destruction. If not, Qin Wentian wouldn't have stood on the opposing side of the Royal Sacred Sect, and the Medicine Sovereign Valley wouldn't have started a war with the Royal Sacred Sect. In fact, the Medicine Sovereign Valley even chose to live in seclusion, and no one knew that the mysterious and low-profile Medicine Sovereign had already become an immortal. After knowing that the hegemon of the royal sacred sect was replaced, the people of the world felt as though they were in the midst of a tidal wave. However, the low profile of the Medicine Sovereign Valley caused the entire world to be as calm as before, and that tidal wave ultimately didn't appear. Half a year later, everything gradually calmed down. However, out of the 9 great sects, only the Battle Sword sect and the Forgotten Immortal Tower remained. The 2 empires that once ruled over a region had already disintegrated because of the deaths of their rulers. Numerous countries of nobility as well as countless new powers appeared, and they unceasingly waged war on the 2 empires. This war lasted for an entire year, yet no one was able to truly unify the 2 empires once again. They could only accept the current situation, with the various powers occupying the 2 empires separately. This expedition that lasted for a long time had also given birth to many experts and outstanding figures, and their reputations had risen to prominence. However, no matter how intense this war was, it didn't affect the Grand Xia Empire that was once known as the desolate land of the royal sacred region. There was no other reason than because it was rumored that the Grand Xia Empire was the hometown of Qin Wentian. One could ask, in this world, who would dare to touch Qin Wentian's hometown? Although nobody knew exactly how the royal sacred sect was destroyed, there was no doubt that it had something to do with Qin Wentian. And it was precisely when Qin Wentian's name resounded throughout the world that the royal sacred sect started to walk towards destruction. First, they were dragged down from the divine altar by Qin Wentian. At that time, who would dare to imagine that the royal sacred sect would ultimately be destroyed? Time flowed by very quickly. A year had already passed since the destruction of the royal sacred sect. In one of the cities of the Grand Xia Empire, 2 silhouettes strolled along the streets, attracting the attention of countless people. The 2 of them were simply too outstanding. The man was handsome and elegant, a rare romantic figure. The woman was like a fairy with a beauty that could topple nations. The 2 of them held hands and strolled along the ancient street. The sunlight shone on their bodies, interweaving into a painting. These 2 people were none other than Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng. Over the past year or so, the 2 of them had traveled the world, cultivating wherever they went. The 4 seas were their home, and they enjoyed this wonderful time. We've already arrived at the Qingzhou continent, and will soon reach the Chu country. At this moment, Mo Qingcheng mumbled in a low voice, as though she couldn't bear to return. That's right, we are about to return to Chu, Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Qingcheng, where else do you want to go? I can bring you there. No need. You've been with me for so long. In the blink of an eye, more than a year has passed. It's time for you to leave. Mo Qingcheng lowered her head slightly. Although she was smiling, there was still a hint of sadness in her voice. A year ago, she had already made a promise with Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian would head to the immortal realms alone and temporarily wouldn't accompany her. Although Qin Wentian couldn't bear to part with Qingcheng, he had no other choice. Right now, his cultivation base had already broken through to the 2nd level of celestial phenomenon. But in the immortal realms, this level of cultivation base was simply insufficient. If he went there himself, he would have to keep a low profile. How would he dare to bring Mo Qingcheng along? According to the words of Sword Saint Li Mubai, the immortal realms were extremely cruel. The strong preyed on the weak. Hence, Qin Wentian decided to temporarily head to the immortal realms first before bringing Mo Qingcheng over. As for the Medicine Sovereign, after he learned of this matter, he also decided to temporarily stay in the royal sacred region to manage the situation. At the same time, he would focus on teaching Mo Qingcheng. Although she was lacking in terms of cultivation, she had to catch up to Qin Wentian's pace in terms of alchemy. Qin Wentian could sense the sadness in Mo Qingcheng's voice. He was heading to the immortal realms, and it was unknown how long it would be before they parted. How could Mo Qingcheng not be sad? Qin Wentian tightened his grip on Mo Qingcheng's dainty hands as he smiled. I will definitely come back to fetch you as soon as possible. Emicham, I believe in you. Mo Qingqing inclined her head and stared at Qin Wentian as a radiant smile appeared on her face. It was as though she was worried that her depressed mood would affect Qin Wentian. Let's go home first. Qin Wentian smiled. Let's go home. Mo Qingqing also smiled. The two of them increased their speed and an instant later, they vanished from sight. Many people were still staring at their departing backs. All of a sudden, a strange feeling appeared in their hearts. Why did they vanish just like that? They didn't expect that the two of them would vanish just like that. Such a feeling was extremely strange, yet it had truly happened. That young man, why do I feel that he looks so familiar? A person furrowed his brows as though he was contemplating. That young man really did look familiar, but he just couldn't recall where he had seen him before. Why do I have this feeling too? Someone at the side spoke. The two of them exchanged glances as a bolt of lightning flashed through their minds. One of them suddenly trembled as he exclaimed in terror, "It's him, that young man who appeared in the air before the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor. It's rumored that he is Qin Wentian, the Emperor of Grand Xia." The hearts of the two of them pounded. No wonder he had such an extraordinary demeanor. After such a long time, they had almost forgotten about him. This was also because Qin Wentian was too young. When he truly appeared before them, they didn't dare to have any wild thoughts. As for the shock in their hearts, Qin Wentian already had no idea. Time flowed by, in the blink of an eye, another month passed. During this month, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing spent most of their time with their family and friends. They even tossed their cultivation to the side. However, the time they spent together was always so short. Finally, the time for them to separate had arrived. Today, in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, there were many people gathered. The medicine sovereign, Sword Saintly Mubai, the human emperor of Yi Qingyun, Su Tsang of the Battle Sword Sect, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian and the others were all here. Each and every one of these experts had an aura that deeply shook the hearts of those from Grand Xia. Fairy Qingmei, Old Xing and the others, as well as the leaders of the various transcendent powers of Grand Xia, were all here. Qin Wentian intentionally invited them here, wanting them to feel that they would never dare to have any thoughts of rebelling against Grand Xia. This way, after he left, Grand Xia would still be as stable as Mount Tai, there wouldn't be any disturbances. Qin Wentian's friends naturally arrived as well. Fatty Fan Lu, Ouyang Guangsheng, Jiang Ting, Chu Mang, Qin Zheng and Yun Mengyi were all here. "Boss, I really can't bear to part with you." Fatty Fan Lu hung around Qin Wentian, hugging Qin Wentian tightly, causing Qin Wentian to roll his eyes as he cursed in a low voice, "Damn fatty, scram for me. Boss, you really can bear to part with me." Fan Lu released Qin Wentian, pretending to wipe away his tears, yet his eyes were still clean, causing Qin Wentian to be completely speechless. "Little fellow, even if you can bear to part with this damn fatty, you should be reluctant to part with your senior sister, right?" Luo Huan was still clad in a sexy red tight-fitting robe, accentuating her voluptuous figure to perfection, causing people to feel aroused. "Sis, of course I can't bear to part with you." Qin Wentian walked forward, gently caressing Luo Huan's hair as he took the initiative to give her a hug, causing her to be stunned for a moment before she giggled and hugged Qin Wentian back. At this moment, her eyes were slightly red. This time, they were really going to part ways. The place Qin Wentian was going to was a different world in the immortal realms, a different sky. Valuing a lover over a friend. Fan Lu sighed in depression. Exactly, valuing a lover over a friend. Do you have any objections? Ouyang Guangsheng laughed. You aren't that far off either. Fan Lu glanced at Jiang Ting, his words causing Jiang Ting to laugh as well. Qin Chuan, Qin Yao, Qin He and Qin Yi naturally arrived as well as Mustang and the others from the Emperor Star Academy. Father. Qin Wentian stared at Qin Chuan, not knowing what to say. Qin Chuan heavily patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders as he laughed, "Child, you have grown up. In the future when you roam the heavens and earth, you must remember safety first." Qin Wentian nodded his head. After which, he glanced at Qin Yao who was beside him. Qin Yao's eyes were slightly red, as tears flowed down her cheeks. Sis, don't cry. Qin Wentian wiped away the tears on Qin Yao's face. I won't cry. Silly boy, you have to take good care of yourself. Qin Yao did her best to hold back her tears. Qin Wentian hugged her tightly, and Qin Yao's tears once again flowed uncontrollably down her cheeks. Qin Wentian bid farewell to his family and friends, not missing a single person. He even bid farewell to those who had followed him, including those from the Zong clan and the White Deer Institute. When he saw Bai Lu Yi, her innocent eyes were as beautiful as ever, staring at him. Qin Wentian smiled at her. Little Yi, work hard. You will definitely become a grandmaster in the future. Take care. Bai Lu Yi didn't know what to feel in her heart. This young man who had once studied divine inscriptions with her in the White Deer Cavern was now going to the immortal realms. I will. Qin Wentian nodded. Can you? At this moment, Bai Lu Yi blushed. Qin Wentian asked, what's wrong? Bai Lu Yi stepped forwards, hugging Qin Wentian with both her hands, causing Qin Wentian to be taken aback. After which, Bai Lu Yi laughed. Qin Wentian, do you know how much you've harmed me? Ever since I met you, I'm afraid that in this lifetime, I would never be able to meet a man more outstanding than you. After speaking, Bai Lu Yi turned and walked away. Her elder brother Bai Lu Jing waved his hands at Qin Wentian, while Qin Wentian sighed in his heart as he stared at her beautiful back view. Those from the White Deer Institute were sighing as well. Bai Lu Yi was right, she and Qin Wentian could be considered old friends. After getting to know Qin Wentian, it would be extremely difficult for her to meet anyone who could surpass Qin Wentian. In the future, everyone she met would be compared to Qin Wentian. To Bai Lu Yi, this was simply too cruel. Hey, can Xian'er give you a hug as well? Lin Xian'er walked over to Qin Wentian, smiling sweetly. Sure. Qin Wentian magnanimously replied as he hugged Lin Xian'er as well. Lin Xian'er simply smiled. She's right. In the royal sacred region, I'm afraid I won't be able to find anyone more outstanding than you. I'm afraid I can only go to the immortal realms. Goodbye. After speaking, the number one beauty in the royal sacred region also turned and departed. Compared to Bai Lu Yi, she was much more carefree. Thank you. Qin Wentian stared at the familiar silhouettes as he felt moved in his heart. They were all here to send him off. Finally, Qin Wentian walked to Mo Qingcheng. He held her hand, and even after a long time, he still couldn't bear to let go. Go on. Mo Qingcheng calmly smiled. Wait for me to return. Qin Wentian replied. Mo Qingcheng smiled and nodded. After which, Qin Wentian turned and walked to the side of Sword Saint Li Mubai. Everyone, let's meet again in the future. Qin Wentian bids his farewell. Qin Wentian's voice rang out. After which, Li Mubai brought him along as their silhouettes flickered, soaring through the air. Staring at the departing silhouettes, Mo Qingcheng could no longer maintain her smile. Tears flowed unceasingly down her face. Qin Ya was also crying. She had no way to hold back her tears. In fact, Yiling Shuang was still in Yi Qingyin's embrace, filled with intense sadness. The carefree Luo Huan also shed a tear. Chapter 742. How could Qin Wentian not feel sad as well? But in order to pursue a higher cultivation base, to uncover the secrets of his origins, and to find Qing'er, he had to leave. Right now, there was no longer any pressure in the royal sacred region. This would only hinder his growth. The medicine sovereign stayed behind to guide Mo Qingcheng. In that case, the person who would bring Qin Wentian out was naturally Sword Saint Li Mubai. In the air, Qin Wentian sat on a flying boat that moved with lightning speed, soaring through the air with extreme speed. This sky should be boundless, right? Qin Wentian could no longer see the silhouettes below. Hence, he inclined his head and stared at the sky. There's a formless energy in a particle world that envelopes the entire world. Outside a particle world, there's indeed no world. If people from the royal sacred region want to leave this particle world, they have to have an immortal foundation expert to receive them. Only by breaking the energy of the particle world can they exit. Li Mubai spoke to Qin Wentian, his words causing Qin Wentian to nod his head silently. He could sense the existence of the starry space from the ground and could even summon astral war beasts. This also meant that the energy of the particle world was truly formless and not material. After a long time, Qin Wentian didn't even know how high he was now. He could faintly sense that the formless energy was binding him, causing the speed of the flying boat to slow down. Alright, I'm going to break through the barrier. Be prepared. Li Mubai spoke. After that, he brought Qin Wentian along with him and abruptly increased his speed. At this moment, Li Mubai was like a sharp sword. Immortal light revolved around him as a sharp sword from the heavens slammed into the formless void. A terrifying formless energy rippled forth as a buzzing sound rang out. Qin Wentian only felt his vision blurring as a terrifying force directly flung him through the air. At this moment, Qin Wentian only felt a bout of dizziness in his head. But very swiftly, he discovered that his body was floating in the boundless void. This. Qin Wentian's heart was filled with shock. He stared ahead, only to see a boundlessly resplendent constellation shining with boundless light, illuminating his entire body. Even the starry space around him was completely enveloped by the light. Where's the royal sacred region? Qin Wentian's heart pounded. Over there, we were flung out. That's just a particle. The immortal halo around Li Mubai enveloped Qin Wentian. His finger pointed to a speck of light in the air. That's right, it was just a speck of light. That is. Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. Over there were countless specks of light floating in the air. Were each of these specks of light a particle world? Yes, those are all particle worlds. These particle worlds are already very far away from us. If you get closer, you would discover that they are extremely vast. But compared to the immortal realms, they are merely a drop of water in the ocean. Li Mubai laughed. Qin Wentian stared at the immortal realms that were radiating boundless light. It was as though the light of the particle worlds originated from above. His gaze shifted unceasingly, but no matter how he shifted, he was still within the boundaries of the immortal realms. Are the particle worlds above or below the immortal realms? Qin Wentian mumbled. Silly brat. In this boundlessly vast space, how can there be up and down? Up and down, they are all relative. Li Mubai laughed. Qin Wentian froze for a moment before nodding his head. That's right, in this space of nothingness, how could there be a true direction? If the two of them were floating in opposite directions, who would be in the right direction and who would be in the opposite direction? Actually, the place we are at now, including those particle worlds, are still within the boundaries of the azure mystic immortal realms. It's just that we are now in the airspace above the immortal realms. When we get closer to the immortal realms, we would be able to sense the gravitational pull from the azure mystic immortal realms. Li Mubai explained to Qin Wentian. Azure mystic immortal realms? Is that the name of this immortal realms? It's rumored that there are 33 heavenly layers in the immortal realms. Where are they located? Qin Wentian stared at the boundless starry sky. A particle world when compared to the boundless starry sky was truly nothing more than a tiny particle. Other worlds basically couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Don't think too far ahead. It's just that this world is already too vast to you. Let's continue moving forward. Li Mubai brought Qin Wentian towards the direction of the immortal realms. At the same time, he reminded, I have immortal energy and can resist the gravitational pull from the immortal realms. But you can't. As we get closer, the powerful gravitational pull will directly pull you over. Don't resist, given your physical body, you won't die from the fall. However, I won't be accompanying you. Ha! Okay, Senior has already done enough for me. Qin Wentian spoke with gratitude. Make your preparations. Our current location should be the Cloud Prefecture of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. As for which city you will land in, I have no way to be sure. Let's go. Li Mubai spoke, bringing Qin Wentian with him as they flew towards the boundlessly vast immortal realms. Qin Wentian stared at the boundlessly vast immortal realms. It was like a constellation that spanned across the boundless void, similar to the constellations in the 9 heavenly layers. A smile appeared on his face as boundless yearning appeared in his heart. Not long after, Qin Wentian felt a terrifying gravitational force gushing over. As he got closer to the immortal realms, the gravitational pull grew stronger and stronger. In the future when you roam the immortal realms, you have to be more careful. Go on. Li Mubai released Qin Wentian. Instantly, Qin Wentian was like a shooting star as he sped towards the immortal realms, leaving behind a trail of afterimages in the air. In the vast immortal realms, this trail of afterimages was extremely insignificant. At this moment, no one in the immortal realms knew what kind of waves this trail of afterimages would cause. The Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, the true immortal realms. In the outer space, there were countless floating particle worlds. In the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, there were countless experts and boundless powers. And among these powers, the most famous were undoubtedly those that stood at the peak of the immortal realms. One of them was none other than the Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures. The Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures were the 13 great prefectures of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. The size of their territory was unimaginably vast. These 13 prefectures all had their own names, but in the past, there wasn't a unified name. It was only after the Dongxing Heaven Emperor appeared that they got their names. This place was the land governed by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. For example, the Evergreen Kingdom, which was also a hegemonic power in the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, wasn't known as the Evergreen Kingdom in the past. It was only after the Evergreen Immortal Emperor took control of this immortal empire did the name change. It was the same for the Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor established the Eastern Sage Immortal Palace on the Eastern Sage Mountain. His disciples and subordinates fought for him, and after several hundred years, the 13 prefectures were unified and the Eastern Sage Mountain became the sacred ground of the 13 prefectures. Although the Eastern Sage Mountain didn't directly control the 13 prefectures, everyone in the 13 prefectures understood who the true master of the 13 prefectures was. The Cloud Prefecture was one of the prefectures and was governed by one of the disciples of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, the Idle Cloud Immortal King. There were also countless powers and cities in the Cloud Prefecture, but none of them dared to proclaim themselves as an empire. In the entire Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, not a single power dared to do so. That would simply be courting death. There were a total of 81 counties in the Cloud Prefecture and each county had many cities. Hence, the number of cities in the Cloud Prefecture was innumerable. The Worry-Free City was one of the cities in the vast Cloud Prefecture. At this moment, in the airspace above the Worry-Free City, a beam of light suddenly appeared. It was like a bolt of lightning arcing through the air, emitting rumbling sounds as its speed was terrifying. What is that? The people in a certain location in the Worry-Free City abruptly inclined their heads and stared at the meteor-like light in the air. After which, many of their silhouettes flickered, as though they were worried that the meteor would smash into them. Rumble. A thunderous boom rang out as a gigantic crater appeared on the ground. Numerous cracks could be seen on the ground and everyone in a radius of 100 miles could feel the tremors from the impact. As for the people in the vicinity of the crater, their eyes gleamed with sharpness as they stared at the crater. After which, they all rushed to the top of the crater and peered into it. After which, they saw a figure drenched in blood. It was actually a human. How did this person fall from the sky? Many people felt their hearts trembling as puzzled expressions appeared on their faces. This person seems to be very young. With such a terrifying speed, even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. The crowd murmured. But after which, they heard a low curse coming from the depths of the crater as the body struggled to move, causing them to be astonished. This fellow, what a powerful physique. He could still move even in such a state. Qin Wentian at this moment also had an impulse to curse. He was tricked by Sword Saint Li Mubai. That fellow said that when he was about to land, he would be able to resist the force. But when he was about to land, the force was already too strong, and even though he resisted with all his might, he was still smashed heavily into the ground. Many of his bones were even fractured. This was too miserable. If he knew this would happen, he would have asked Li Mubai to bring him to the immortal realms. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Qin Wendian crawled up and sat at the edge of the deep pit, staring at the spectators. His deep eyes flickered as he surveyed the crowd of people gathered here. The majority of the people here had a cultivation base at the celestial phenomenon realm. As for the younger ones, they were all at the heavenly dipper realm. Evidently, the immortal realms weren't like what one would imagine. In the immortal realms, there were truly countless living beings. After each person was born, they had to depend on their own cultivation to grow stronger step by step. Generation after generation, the number of immortals was innumerable, but there would always be more experts below the immortal realm. The higher one's cultivation base was, the lesser the number of immortals. This was an unchanging rule. Oi, why did you fall from the sky? At this moment, a person walked up to Qin Wendian and asked. This person was a young man around 16 to 17 years of age. His eyes were filled with innocence and curiosity as he stared at Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian didn't reply. That young man continued, your injuries shouldn't be light. Let me bring you back and let my old man take a look at your injuries. Chapter 743. Qin Wendian could see through the cultivation base of this young man with a single glance. He was at the 7th level of Yuanfu. Such a young man actually had such a cultivation base. Even in the royal sacred region of a particle world, it was hard to imagine. Maybe, this was the disparity between the immortal realms and particle worlds. In the royal sacred region, many people had limited talent and were stuck at the arterial circulation realm or Yuanfu realm. But in the immortal realms, before the heavenly dipper realm, there would be no obstructions. Only at the heavenly dipper realm would the cultivation speed slow down. At the celestial phenomenon realm, one would have to depend on one's comprehension ability. There were also countless people in the immortal realms who were stuck at this level, unable to advance any further. Every single step was extremely difficult. Once one reached the immortal foundation realm, they could already be considered a hegemon in any city in the immortal realms. In fact, the majority of the kings of a country were at the immortal foundation realm. A king of a country was already a major character. To ordinary people in the immortal realms, they were lofty existences. Can your old man treat injuries? Although Qin Wendian was injured, given his tyrannical recovery ability, there shouldn't be any problems. It was just that he had just entered the immortal realms and didn't even know where this place was. Just when he was about to ask around, the eyes of the young man before him flickered with curiosity. He would definitely be extremely handsome in a few more years. My old man knows how to concoct medicine. Your injuries shouldn't pose a problem to him. The young man nodded. Okay then, I will follow you. I will have to trouble you. Qin Wendian smiled. Okay, let me help you. The young man spoke as he walked up to support Qin Wendian. He didn't seem to be scheming as he continued, my name is Qin Feng, what about you? You are also surnamed Qin. Qin Wendian started. After a moment, he smiled, in that case, we are truly fated. My name is Qin Wendian. You are older than me, I will directly address you as Big Brother Qin. Qin Feng supported Qin Wendian as they walked forward. Only then did the crowd disperse. After all, Qin Wendian didn't seem to be anything special, there was no need to place too much attention on him. Oh right, Big Brother Qin, you still haven't told me, how did you fall from the sky? Qin Feng's curiosity was still unquenchable. I came from a particle world, which should be what you guys call a country bumpkin world. I was directly sucked down by the powerful gravity of the immortal realms. Qin Wendian didn't lie to Qin Feng. This wasn't a secret, there were countless particle worlds outside the immortal realms. Qin Feng naturally knew that there would be people exiting from those particle worlds. Really? Qin Feng's eyes brightened as he smiled. This is the first time I've met someone from a particle world. There are many rumors about particle worlds in the immortal realms, and there are some extremely unique particle worlds. For example, there are worlds with exceptional talent for cultivation, and many famous immortal kings have been born there. Big brother Qin, what is your particle world like? A very ordinary particle world. Qin Wentian smiled. The two of them chatted as they walked. Qin Wentian also inquired about the situation in the immortal realms from Qin Feng. Only then did he understand how vast the immortal realms were. Just this worry-free city alone already spanned over 100 kilometers and had a population of a few billion. How shocking was this number? And this worry-free city was merely one of the hundreds of cities in the Chujiang country. In that case, how vast was the Chujiang country? The entire royal sacred region was instantly annihilated. A single county was probably as big as 100 royal sacred regions. After all, in the Cloud Prefecture, cities only occupied a small portion of the land. Only a place with a large population and abundant resources would develop into a main city. The wilderness, mountains, rivers, and lakes occupied the majority of the land in the Cloud Prefecture. Even a single country was so huge, let alone the 81 countries in the Cloud Prefecture. The royal sacred region was merely the size of an ant when compared to the Cloud Prefecture. Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures, Eastern Sage. Qin Wentian understood what sort of existence the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was from Qin Feng. The entire Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures were named after him. No wonder the Dongxing Heaven Emperor wouldn't even bother to look at an outstanding genius from a particle world. In the eyes of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, a mere particle world was simply too insignificant. And for those who had the qualifications to attend the banquet held by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, they were all extraordinary immortal kings. Most probably, their statuses surpassed the immortal kings who controlled a prefecture. If it wasn't for the fact that they were giving face to the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, why would they even bother to look at a genius from a particle world? And to the entire Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, the Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures controlled by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was merely a small part of it. As for the outside world, even Qin Feng wasn't very clear about it. In his 16 years of life, he had never stepped out of the worry-free city before. Regarding the Eastern Sage Mountain and the Idle Cloud Immortal King of the Cloud Prefecture, to him, they were all extremely distant existences, akin to legends. He only heard about them from his elders. Qin Feng's dream was to become a marquis of a country, exuding awe and prestige, possessing his own army. That would truly be a major character. As the two of them chatted, they arrived at Qin Feng's residence. Qin Feng's clan could be considered a small clan. Ever since they settled down in the worry-free city, they had over a dozen generations and had over 100 members. Qin Feng, why did you bring an outsider here? In the Qin clan, a middle-aged man, Qin Feng, brought Qin Wentian over as he asked. He curiously glanced at Qin Wentian. He actually couldn't see through the cultivation base of this young man. He should have cultivated some concealment arts. This is big brother Qin Wentian. He came from a particle world. When he landed in the immortal realms, he just so happened to crash into the worry-free city and suffered some injuries. I'm going to look for Grandpa for help. Qin Feng spoke to the middle-aged man. Someone from a particle world? The middle-aged man frowned. Qin Feng, don't be too naive. How can it be so easy for someone from a particle world to come to the immortal realms? Don't be fooled so easily. Uncle, it's not as exaggerated as what you said. I have nothing to gain from this. Qin Feng's lips twitched. Let's not talk anymore, I'm going to look for my grandpa. After speaking, Qin Feng directly brought Qin Wentian into the depths of the Qin clan and came to a medicinal garden. The fragrance of herbs permeated the air, causing one's mind to feel refreshed. Within the garden, there was a young girl dressed in white who was currently harvesting herbs. That peaceful appearance of hers was exceptionally beautiful, serene and quiet. Although she still exuded a hint of immaturity, one could already see the potential of a peerless beauty. Qin, is Grandpa here? Qin Feng called out to the young girl. The young girl inclined her head, her pure eyes gave Qin Wendian a sense of déjà vu. Her appearance bore a striking resemblance to Qin Feng, and with a single glance, one could tell that they were siblings. Also, from this young girl, Qin Wendian could faintly see the shadow of Mo Qingcheng. Back then in Chu, that young girl who was only 16 or 17 years old was already publicly acknowledged as the #1 beauty in Chu. Wasn't this young girl in front of him also as pure and flawless as Mo Qingcheng back then? Is Qingcheng still doing well? Qin Wendian felt some longing in his heart. Right now, he was in the immortal realms, the distance between them was truly too far. Qin Qing also surveyed Qin Wendian. She saw Qin Wendian smiling at her. His smile was warm and gentle, causing one to feel as though they were bathing in the spring breeze. Although he kept staring at her, she didn't feel disgusted at all. His gaze was different from the gazes of many men when they looked at her. There was a sense of closeness in it. Yes, why are you looking for Grandpa? Qin Qing shifted her gaze away as she asked Qin Feng, her voice was extremely melodious. You don't have to care about this, I have some matters to discuss with Grandpa. Qin Feng directly brought Qin Wendian away as he called out, Grandpa. Little devil, you are so annoying. Why don't you learn from your elder sister? A voice drifted over. After that, an old man walked out from the courtyard ahead. His countenance was rosy and he was in high spirits. With a single glance, one could tell that he was extremely healthy. Qin Wendian glanced at him, a 4th-level ascendant and a small clan in the city. This should be the situation in the immortal realms. Celestial phenomenon ascendants belong to the most ordinary clans. For those below this level, they belong to the lower class. As for Immortal Foundation experts, they would be able to become a city lord of a city or stand on equal footing with a city lord. The old man also surveyed Qin Wendian. He only glanced at Qin Wendian before he spoke, Sir, although you are injured, your vitality isn't damaged. You are still filled with energy and spirit, you are definitely an extraordinary character. Grandpa, Big Bro Wendian fell from the sky and his bones are all broken. But his vitality isn't damaged at all. Can you help me take a look? Qin Feng's lips twitched in disbelief. Okay, let me take a look then. The old man walked out, placing his hand on Qin Wendian's shoulder. An instant later, he released his grip and drew in a deep breath. He stared at Qin Wendian, Sir, your recovery speed is shocking and your bloodline is extremely powerful. I'm Qin Mu, I wonder what business do you have with me? Junior was indeed injured by accident and met little brother Qin Feng's warm invitation. Hence, I came here to seek Senior's help. I have no other motives. Qin Wendian bitterly smiled. This old fellow seemed to have some special abilities, he must have seen through his cultivation base. Is that true? Qin Mu smiled. He could see the sincerity in Qin Wendian's eyes and it didn't seem like he was lying. Absolutely. Junior was brought to the immortal realms from a particle world by a senior and was directly pulled down by a powerful gravitational force. I ended up smashing into the city and ended up in a miserable state. Qin Wendian smiled and shook his head. Ha, things are getting interesting. Qin Mu laughed. Sir, your recovery speed is truly shocking. Although you don't need me to treat you, this pill can allow you to recover faster. Please don't regard me as an outsider. Qin Wendian thanked Senior. Qin Wendian didn't stand on ceremony and accepted the pill. Although he also had a pill, he didn't reject Qin Mu's kind intentions. Little friend, since you came to my Qin manor first, why don't you stay here? Qin Feng, Qin Qing, you two siblings will be in charge of entertaining Big Bro Qin. In the future, don't just think about playing around and chat with Big Bro Qin. Try to learn some things from him. Qin Mu had a meaningful smile on his face. 30+ years of age and a cultivation base at the peak of the 2nd level of celestial phenomenon. Such a character must definitely be a terrifying genius. It would naturally be beneficial for Qin Feng and Qin Qing to interact more with him. Just nice, he still wanted to find a good teacher for these two little fellows, and there seemed to be a good candidate in front of him. Chapter 744. Qin Wentian stayed in the Qin clan. Firstly, it was to recuperate from his injuries. Secondly, he had no other place to go since he just arrived in the immortal realms. Thirdly, he wanted to be more familiar with the immortal realms. On the way to the immortal realms, Swordsage Mubai reminded him several times to be more careful in the immortal realms. He mustn't act as recklessly as he did in the royal sacred region. Hence, Qin Wentian acted more cautiously. After all, this place couldn't be compared to the royal sacred region. Immortal Foundation experts were considered legends here. In the immortal realms, if one was careless and offended an Immortal Foundation expert, they might even be implicated. In the Qin clan, Qin Wentian's recovery was extremely good. His bloodline recovery speed was already extremely strong, and in addition, Qin Feng and Qin Qing both took good care of him. This caused him to like these two little fellows more and more. Right now, Qin Wentian also knew that Qin Feng and Qin Qing were siblings. Qin Feng was the younger brother, but the two of them were of the same age because they were twins. The background of this pair of twin siblings was extremely pitiful. Their parents could be considered extremely famous geniuses in the Qin clan, yet they died while out adventuring, leaving behind this pair of siblings to depend on each other. They were brought up by their grandfather, causing Qin Wentian to sigh endlessly. In the martial world, many stellar martial cultivators hoped to have children only after they grew stronger. If they weren't strong enough, the chances of them dying on the path of cultivation would be extremely high. Hence, they couldn't bear to leave behind their children. In the quiet courtyard, Qin Feng was practicing his fist techniques. He was proficient in fist arts and his fists danced about in the air, exuding an aura of invincibility. Qin Wentian sat in the courtyard, watching him. Every time Qin Feng punched out, the power contained within would be extremely ferocious, causing sonic booms to erupt in the air. It was very hard to imagine that someone as handsome as him would cultivate such a domineering fist art. Big brother Qin, drink some medicinal soup. At this moment, a melodious and gentle voice drifted over. Qin Wentian, who was lying on a chair, turned his gaze over to Qin Qing as a smile appeared on his face. Every time he saw Qin Qing, he would feel a sense of closeness. This young girl had the grace and agility of a young woman, and her name was also somewhat similar to Qing Er. Qin Qing, I'm fine now. You don't need to boil medicine for me anymore. Qin Wentian said with a smile, but he still took the medicinal soup from the other party and drank it in one gulp. Grandpa always said that to treat an injury, one must treat it cleanly. That way, there won't be any hidden dangers left in the body. Qin Qing smiled, she also liked to converse with Qin Wentian. During these days, Qin Wentian would often pester Qin Wentian to tell her stories about the particle world. Qin Qing would also listen by the side, feeling that Qin Wentian's stories were extremely interesting. Also, Qin Wentian always gave her a sense of closeness, just like a real big brother. I know, but I still need you to brew the medicine. I feel bad, Qin Wentian said with a smile. Big brother Qin, there's no need to say this. If you feel bad, you can just tell me more stories. Qin Qing smiled. Although the immortal realms were very vast, that was only for experts. On the contrary, to juniors below the celestial phenomenon realm, they didn't dare to roam too far away. Their range of activity was very limited and hence, their experiences were even lesser. How could their experiences be as rich and colorful as Qin Wentian's? Hence, although Qin Feng and Qin Qing grew up in the immortal realms, they weren't as mature as Qin Wentian when he was at their age. Sure, come and look for me whenever you want to listen. Qin Wentian laughed happily. It's a promise. Qin Qing's smile was extremely radiant. Her gaze then turned to Qin Feng as she asked, Big brother Qin, what do you think of Qin Feng's talent? Qin Feng's dream is to become a king of a country and have his own army. Only then would he be able to protect his family. I wonder if his dream can be realized or not. Since Qin Feng has such ambitions, he definitely can. Qin Wendian nodded. Qing, what about you? What wish do you have? Me? Qing started. After that, she smiled. I wish for Grandpa to be healthy and for Qin Feng to be able to realize his wish. What a naive girl. Qin Wendian sighed in his heart. It was truly rare to see such a naive girl. Her wish was very simple. Qin Feng, the strength of your punches isn't right. At this moment, Qin Wendian called out to Qin Feng. Qin Feng halted. He saw Qin Wendian walking towards him as he spoke. Although your punches are ferocious, the power behind them is dispersed. For a truly powerful attack, one must be able to control the strength and precision of the attack as they wish. As he spoke, Qin Wendian blasted out a punch. This punch was as fast as lightning, only to see a terrifying fist wind whistling past Qin Feng's face. That fist was like a resplendent stream of light, as terrifying fist lights blasted out. With a thunderous boom, a gigantic boulder in the courtyard was directly shattered into pieces. However, that terrifying fist light didn't show any signs of continuing forward. This indicated that Qin Wendian's attacks were all focused on that gigantic boulder. Such control was simply terrifying. Big brother Qin, how did you do it? Qin Feng blinked his eyes. He didn't expect Qin Wendian to be so powerful. Training, tempering yourself 1,000 times, tempering yourself time and time again, trying to comprehend the best way to unleash your punches. After that, you will be able to verify it time and time again, achieving the desired effect. Qin Wendian continued, hence, you have to remember, training bitterly. While training bitterly, don't forget to comprehend and discard your flaws, correcting yourself time and time again. Not only that, your current cultivation base has already reached the threshold of mandates. You should try to comprehend the mandate of Fist and mandate of Great Earth. Your astral soul should be able to easily comprehend these two mandates. In the past, Grandpa also told me similar words, but I still couldn't find the gist of it. Big brother Qin, can you help me? Qin Feng asked with anticipation in his voice. Qin Wendian seemed to be very powerful. Sure, I will guide you in the future. Qin Wendian nodded. Then let me take you as my master. Qin Feng spoke. No need, I'm not that much older than you. It's fine if you just refer to me as Big Brother Qin. Qin Wendian smiled as he continued guiding Qin Wendian's cultivation. Although the Qin clan also had celestial phenomenon ascendants, in terms of comprehension, no one in the Qin clan could be compared to Qin Wendian. Hence, during the following period of time, Qin Feng's improvement was extremely fast. Every time Qin Wendian gave him pointers, he would be able to gain enlightenment, as though he was enlightened. Hence, Qin Feng stuck to Qin Wendian even more. He would visit Qin Wendian's residence almost every day. During Qin Wendian's free time, he would guide Qin Feng while Qin would sit at the side and watch. Such a scene would often appear in the Qin clan and it was extremely harmonious. Qin Mu, who would occasionally come over to take a look, was also very happy. Naturally, Qin Wendian wouldn't neglect his own cultivation. Sometimes, he would go to the worry-free city for a stroll. Today, Qin Wendian heard a piece of news in the worry-free city. The largest gambling den of the worry-free city, the Amorsi's residence, would have a complete Sky Demon Oracle bone as the gambling stake. This caused Qin Wendian to be extremely moved. He cultivated the Fiend God Body Refinement Art and the Sky Demon Oracle bone was a must-have. But in the Royal Sacred Region, he could only obtain it in powder form. Now that he just arrived in the Immortal Realms, he already heard that there would be a complete Sky Demon Oracle bone. What sort of place is the Amorsi's residence? Why is it a gambling den? In the Qin clan, Qin Wendian stared at Qin as he asked. Amorsi's residence. Qin's beautiful eyes flashed. After that, she turned to Qin Wendian, Big brother Qin, you can't be thinking of going to the Amorsi's residence, right? That place isn't a good place. I'm just curious. I'm just casually asking. Qin Wendian couldn't help but smile when he saw the nervous look on Qin's face. That's good. The Amorsi's residence is a gambling den, but their gambling method is extremely unique. They would gamble once every 7 days, and those who are willing to bet must be willing to lose. Qin Qing explained. Every 7 days, the Amorsi's residence would take out an extremely valuable treasure and announce to the outside world that those who wish to obtain this treasure only need to place a tenth of the value of the treasure in the Amorsi's residence, and they would be able to participate in this gambling den. They would have a chance to obtain the treasure they released. Qin Wentian's heart stirred. This idea was extremely tempting. Let me give you a simple example. The Amorsi's residence would take out 10 immortal rank divine weapons. You only need to take out one and you would have a chance to obtain all 10. Many people would be tempted, and hence, those who participated in the gambling den would have to take out a tenth of the value of the treasure. In this way, the Amorsi's residence would definitely profit and not lose out. After that, the Amorsi's residence would provide a fair competition for the treasures, allowing the participants to fight for it themselves. It would be best if only one of them could win. Qin Qing's explanation was extremely clear, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. What a powerful method! This time around, the Amorsi's residence took out a sky demon oracle bone. Such a rare treasure would definitely cause the hearts of many to be moved. At that time, the number of participants would probably exceed 100. The Amorsi's residence would be able to reap a huge profit from this. This method was simply too powerful. But despite knowing this, those people would still participate. Just like Qin Wentian, he had no other methods to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. Could he give up on such an opportunity? No, this was the true power of the Amorsi's residence. Everyone knew that they would definitely profit and not lose out, but you would still fall into their trap. Big Brother Qin, the Amorsi's residence is extremely powerful. Although the competition they proposed was fair, it would be extremely cruel. If one is willing to bet, one must be willing to lose. The 4 words Amorsi's residence have harmed many people. Qin Qing seemed to dislike the Amorsi's residence a lot. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart, this was simply making use of the greed of others. Although one knew that there were risks involved, it was hard not to fall into their trap. Qin Feng. A voice drifted over. After which, a middle-aged man walked into the courtyard. Qin Feng, who was in the midst of practicing his fist technique, halted as he stared at the middle-aged man and asked, "Uncle, what's the matter?" Qin Feng, there's a good thing. Right now in my residence, there's a celestial phenomenon ascendant who is also proficient in fist techniques. Let me bring you to meet him. If your luck is good, you might be able to join his tutelage. The middle-aged man had a warm smile on his face. After which, he turned to Qin Qing and smiled, "Qin Qing, come along as well." "Uncle, I'm not interested." Qin Feng directly interrupted. "You little fellow, why don't you know what's good for you? Come with me." The middle-aged man frowned as he spoke unhappily. Qin Wentian stared at the two of them with a puzzled expression. Qin Feng and Qin Qing didn't seem to like their uncle. This middle-aged man was none other than the one who warned Qin Feng to be careful of him when he first arrived at the Qin clan. "I already said I'm not going." "Uncle, you can return by yourself. I'm doing quite well learning from Big Brother Qin, there's no need for me to seek help from another teacher." Qin Feng directly spoke. "He doesn't know what's good for him. Who does he think he is, blindly learning from others every day?" The middle-aged man coldly glanced at Qin Wentian before he turned and left. Having no parents means that he lacks upbringing. Qin Feng's eyes instantly turned red, he clenched his fists so tightly that crackling sounds could be heard. Staring at his uncle, Qin Wentian also frowned. But after all, this was a matter of the Qin clan. He wasn't clear about the conflict between both parties, hence he had no reason to interfere. Chapter 745. Qin Qing also hatefully stared at the back view of the man. After which, she turned to Qin Feng and spoke, "Qin Feng, you have to work hard and become the pillar of our Qin clan in the future." Qin Feng nodded heavily. "Is he your biological uncle?" Qin Wentian murmured. If they were a family, there shouldn't be a need to be so harsh, right? Nope, he is my father's cousin. Qin Qing shook her head. I heard from Grandpa that in the past, my father and mother were the ones with the best talent in the clan. Hence, all the resources in the clan were given to my parents. At that time, this uncle of mine was already jealous of my father. And now, Qin Feng's talent is so good that most of the people of great-grandpa's generation have already left the clan. Grandpa has inherited the Qin clan and doted on us a lot. Hence, his hatred grew even stronger and he wanted nothing more than to chase Qin Feng away. Qin Qing wanted to say something but she hesitated. Her pure and beautiful countenance was filled with anger. Especially after the words of the man earlier, it was too hurtful. Big brother Qin, it's fine if he has designs on me. But what's even more hateful is that this man's heart is filthy, he didn't even spare Qin Qing. After Qin Qing grew up, she gradually became more and more beautiful. He actually introduced Qin Qing to the celestial phenomenon ascendants outside the clan and even fanned the flames in the clan. Qin Feng's anger was even more obvious, this caused Qin Wendian to furrow his brows. He didn't expect that as the uncle of Qin Qing and Qin Feng, his heart would be so venomous. He didn't even spare young girls. You have to be careful of this man in the future. Don't come into contact with him in case you fall into his schemes. Qin Wendian persuaded. I've already fallen into his schemes. Back then, there was a lecherous man in his 50s who took a fancy to Qin Qing. He was extremely strong and if it wasn't for my grandpa refusing, I'm afraid Qin Qing would have already fallen into his schemes. Qin Feng was even more enraged when he thought of a certain matter. Sadly, his strength wasn't high enough or he wouldn't have feigned civility with that man. If that man dared to have designs on Qin Qing again, he would have already beaten him up. Qin Feng, forget it. Just be more careful in the future. Big brother Qin, please don't laugh at me. Qin Qing was after all still a young girl. Qin Qing, if there's something like this in the future, tell me. I'll help you. Qin Wendian smiled as he rubbed Qin Qing's head. Qin Qing didn't dodge, she just smiled sweetly at Qin Wendian and said, okay. If it was any other man who touched her head, Qin Qing would definitely be angry, but she would not be angry with Qin Wendian. She could feel a kind of familial concern from his eyes. People could feel each other's feelings. Qin Wendian cared for her, and she also treated Qin Wendian as a big brother. Sadly, big brother Qin is too young. If he cultivated for a longer period of time, he would most probably already be a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Qin Feng looked at Qin Wendian and smiled. He had asked the old man about Qin Wendian's age before, and the old man said he was only in his 30s. Of course, he believed that the old man wouldn't be wrong. Silly little fellow. Qin Wendian smiled as he shook his head. He had taught him for so many days, yet Qin Wendian still couldn't sense his own attainments. Was he no longer a heavenly dipper sovereign? However, Qin Wendian hadn't interacted much with celestial phenomenon ascendants. If he had interacted with them before, he would understand that many celestial phenomenon ascendants didn't have as deep a comprehension as Qin Wendian's teachings. His grandfather knew this, but since Qin Wendian didn't say anything, his grandfather didn't tell Qin Wendian either. In any case, it wouldn't be wrong to let Qin Feng and Qin Qing learn from Qin Wendian. The Amorsi's residence was the largest casino in the worry-free city. They would only gamble once every 7 days, yet they still dared to call themselves the largest. This was because every time they gambled, they would bet on immortal rank treasures. The Sky Demon Oracle Bone was a material that could be used to forge immortal rank divine weapons and was extremely valuable. A complete set of Sky Demon Oracle Bone was worth far more than an ordinary immortal rank divine weapon. Although the worry-free city was vast, it was extremely rare for immortal rank treasures to appear. The Amorsi's residents would only gamble once every 7 days, hence, they naturally could be considered the largest casino in the worry-free city. In addition, the Amorsi's residence wasn't just located in the worry-free city. There were countless cities in the entire Cloud Prefecture that had Amorsi's residences. This was an extremely powerful power, and it was rumored that the master of the Amorsi's residence was a supreme expert at the Immortal King realm. The Amorsi's residence in the worry-free city was extremely vast. It was a palace that spanned the entire length of the Cloud Prefecture. It was extremely majestic, and there were experts guarding the stairway leading up to it. At this moment, several experts came to the Amorsi's residence, ascending the stairway and stepping into the Amorsi's residence. Qin Wentian also arrived at this place. Although there were guards here, no one obstructed him. He directly ascended the staircase and saw that there were already several experts gathered outside the palace. All of them were here to register for the Sky Demon Oracle Bone, all for the sake of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. There are so many people. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over. Today was the registration day, and at the same time, the details of the gambling battle would be announced, allowing those who came here to decide if they wanted to participate or not. Outside the majestic palace, there were over 1,000 people waiting. There were people of all ages, and the majority of them were at the Celestial Phenomenon realm. There were originally very few Immortal Foundation experts in the worry-free city, hence it wasn't easy to see one. Seems like there are quite a number of people here to join in the fun. However, there are at least several hundred who came here for the Sky Demon Oracle Bone, and not everyone has arrived yet. The number of participants this time around could easily exceed 100. Qin Wentian silently mused. This meant that the Amorsi's residents would be able to earn at least 9 times the amount they spent on this gambling battle. At this moment, a commotion broke out in the crowd. Many turned and stared at a group of silhouettes as they whispered to each other. It's Luo. Han Luo is actually interested in the Sky Demon Oracle Bone? Could it be that his father sent him here? If young Master Luo really wants to participate in this gambling battle, I'm afraid I would have no chance at all. I might as well not go and waste it. Someone mused. The Amorsi's residents wouldn't be able to win every time. There would be times when they would lose money. Such situations were extremely rare. For example, there were several extremely famous characters participating in the gambling battle, causing others to give up willingly. The son of the governor of the worry-free city, Han Luo, was undoubtedly an existence that could cause others to give up. Han Luo was a battle maniac, and his father was the governor of a city. His authority was on par with the city lord, and he was an existence that could keep the city lord in check. Yu Yan, you are indeed here. Han Luo's gaze turned to a certain person as he walked to the side of that person. At this moment, the gazes of the crowd turned over, only to see a beautiful young lady with an outstanding demeanor. Before this, many people had already noticed her. She could be considered an extremely outstanding existence among the crowd. It was very hard for people not to notice her. Yu Yan, it's Xiao Yu Yan. Someone exclaimed in shock. This young lady was actually Xiao Yuyan. They should have long guessed it. With the appearance of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone, as the heaven chosen of the Golden Armor sect, how could Xiao Yuyan not appear? Xiao Yuyan's master is the supreme elder of the Golden Armor sect, a leading character in the weaponsmithing world of the worry-free city. Most probably, Xiao Yuyan is determined to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle Bone no matter what. Maybe, this might be a test given to her by her master. Everyone mused silently. Since 2 outstanding characters from the worry-free city have arrived, it seemed like this gambling battle was going to be extremely difficult. Qin Wentian's hearing was extremely good. Although many people were speaking in low voices, they couldn't escape his ears. Very soon, he knew the identities of these 2. If the Qin clan could be said to be an ordinary clan, then the backgrounds of these 2 could be said to be the most illustrious in the worry-free city. In addition, their fame was also extremely great as well. Seems like the competition for the Sky Demon Oracle Bone would be extremely intense. It wouldn't be easy to obtain it. Ha, Han Luo, aren't you talking nonsense? With the appearance of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone, how could Yu Yan not appear? At this moment, a carefree voice drifted over. Another group of figures walked over, and the person in the lead was also very young. His gaze landed on Xiao Yuyan and Han Luo as he smiled. Yuyan, I knew you would appear. Hence, I intentionally rushed over. Jiang Feng, seems like things are going to get lively. Jiang Feng has been chasing after Zhao Yuyan relentlessly for so many years, but he still hasn't succeeded. Zhao Yuyan is a heaven chosen of the Golden Armor sect. Not only is she powerful in terms of combat prowess, she also has attainments in weaponsmithing. In addition to her beauty, how can a woman like her not be welcomed? Zhao Yuyan emotionlessly glanced at Jiang Feng and ignored him. However, Jiang Feng wasn't angry. He only stared at Han Luo with a hint of enmity in his eyes. At this moment, the attendants of the Amorsi's residence walked out from the Great Hall ahead. The signboard at the side of the Great Hall displayed the price of the bet. After glancing at it, the crowd nodded their heads in approval. How fair! The price was roughly 1/10 of a Sky Demon Oracle bone. One could directly pay in Yuan meteor stones or use other treasures of equivalent value as a substitute. However, the crowd was still waiting for the Amorsi's residents to decide the details of the bet. Only then would they be able to weigh the odds and decide if they wanted to participate or not. At this moment, another expert walked out and announced, "This bet is a formation battle. The final victor shall obtain the Sky Demon Oracle bone." Formation battle? Seems like there's still hope. A glimmer of hope flashed in the eyes of some. A formation battle was a battle within a formation diagram. There was strength as well as luck. If one's luck was good, they would be able to obtain the support of a powerful formation, and there was a high possibility that they would be able to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle bone. Formation battle, I love it the most. At this moment, a demonic voice drifted over. The crowd only saw a young man walking over as a sense of unease appeared in their hearts. He actually came here as well. In that case, the chances of them obtaining the Sky Demon Oracle bone would shrink even further. However, there were also many who didn't waver. An example was an old man in black. His eyes gleamed with coldness. This time around, he was determined to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle bone no matter what. No matter who appeared, they wouldn't be able to snatch it away. Another example was a young man with eyes as red as blood. He exuded a baleful aura, causing the people in the surroundings to not dare to get close to him. There were many capable people in the immortal realms, and none of them were existences that were easy to antagonize. Those who would be scared off by them were originally the weaker ones. I want the Sky Demon Oracle bone. Who wants to compete with me? The demonic young man who arrived later directly walked through the crowd and arrived at the entrance of the Great Hall. He turned his head and swept a glance at the crowd before simply standing there, causing many to pause as they furrowed their brows. Chapter 746. Xiaoyu, this place is the Amorsi's residence, we won't compete with you. Why don't you directly ask the Amorsi's residents to give you the Sky Demon Oracle bone? Wouldn't that be better? Han Luo stared at the evil-looking young man blocking the entrance as he coldly spoke. Xiaoyu, the only son of the female city lord of the worry-free city. His father was a hegemon of a particle world, an immortal foundation expert. His true form was that of a demonic beast and was extremely tyrannical. Back then, when he broke out of his particle world and came to the immortal realms, he subdued the worry-free city lord and made her his wife. She gave birth to a son which was none other than this Xiaoyu. In addition, Xiaoyu had inherited the talent of his parents and was extremely powerful. Those who dared to antagonize him were most probably only those immortal ranked powers. An example was the Golden Armor sect that Zhao Yuyan was in. The Golden Armor sect had an immortal foundation expert, and in a city, such a power could be considered a peak power. There was also Jiang Feng who was wooing Zhao Yuyan. He was the young master of the Fall Kill sect and was extremely powerful. Naturally, as the son of a governor, Han Luo, and the son of the worry-free city lord, Xiaoyu, were two people who didn't get along. Han Luo, I'm only asking who wants to compete with me. If you want to compete, I won't object. Xiaoyu's eyes flashed with an evil light as a faint golden light flickered within, giving off a baleful aura. His father was a berserk demon immortal and he had inherited the demonic blood of his father. He was extremely dangerous and savage. As he spoke, Xiaoyu's gaze swept past the others, pausing on Zhao Yuyan for a moment. His eyes gleamed with an evil light, causing Zhao Yuyan to frown, feeling somewhat unhappy with the way Xiaoyu was looking at her. Xiaoyu, step down. A voice rang out from the great hall. Xiaoyu stared at the person who came over and smiled. After which, he retreated. The expert from the Amorsi's residence spoke, "Okay, everyone can pay the yuan meteor stones or other treasures of equivalent value. The gambling battle will commence 3 days later." The location of the gambling battle would be in the vast space before the Great Hall of the Amorsi's residence. The people of the worry-free city could spectate. Han Luo was the first to step out, followed by Zhao Yuyan, Jiang Feng, and the rest. Xiaoyu's threat seemed to have some effect. Although many people were tempted, they were hesitant. But ultimately, there were still over 100 participants who chose to participate. Naturally, Qin Wentian was one of them. He had to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle Bone no matter what. After Qin Wentian signed up, he silently departed alone. This place wasn't the royal sacred region, there basically wouldn't be anyone who would recognize a minor character like him who just arrived in the immortal realms. When he left the Amorsi's residence, Han Luo also curiously cast a glance at Qin Wentian. After all, Qin Wentian looked very young and had an extraordinary demeanor, yet he was exceptionally low profile. Naturally, Han Luo didn't pay much attention to him. After returning to the Qin clan, Qin Feng saw Qin Wentian returning. He then spoke to Qin Qing, "Qin, Big Brother Qin seems to be very busy. Big Brother Qin naturally has his own matters to attend to. Do you think it's so simple to come to the immortal realms from a particle world? He definitely has to work hard in his cultivation." Qin Qing spoke in a low voice. Qin Wentian bade farewell to them and entered his room to cultivate. For the next few days, he went out every day, occasionally giving pointers to Qin Feng and chatting with Qin Qing. It seemed like he was getting busier and busier. They had no idea what Qin Wentian was doing. Today, Qin Wentian went out again. Qin Feng and Qin Qing were chatting when Qin Feng spoke, "I heard that the Amorsi's residence is going to hold an important gambling battle today. They took out a Sky Demon Oracle Bone and the participants are Xiaoyu, Han Luo, Zhao Yuyan, Jiang Feng, and the others. I really want to go take a look. It's just that it's a little far away from us." Zhao Yuyan is participating in the gambling battle as well. Qin Qing naturally knew of the names of these people. Although the worry-free city was vast, there were very few immortal-ranked powers here. These powers were the focus of attention of the entire worry-free city. The geniuses of these immortal-ranked powers were naturally heard of by the people of the worry-free city. Zhao Yuyan's talent was outstanding and she was also a genius weaponsmith. She was the idol of many females, including Qin Qing. That's right. Xiaoyu and Han Luo are going to clash again. I wonder which of them would be able to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle Bone this time around. If only I was also a celestial phenomenon ascendant, I would be able to rush over to spectate this gambling battle. Qin Feng spoke with some disappointment. The difference in speed between Yuanfu and celestial phenomenon ascendants was tens of millions. To Immortal Foundation experts, the worry-free city was very small. To celestial phenomenon ascendants, it was ordinary, but to Yuanfu experts, it was boundlessly vast. Qin Feng had never left the worry-free city before. From here to the Amorsi's residence, if Qin Feng traveled by himself, he didn't know how long it would take. Outside the ancient hall of the Amorsi's residence, there were many spectators who came to spectate the gambling battle. The crowd stared ahead, there was a formation diagram floating in the air. This formation diagram was able to manifest a formation dimension, it was an immortal-ranked treasure that could form a world of its own. The so-called formation battle referred to the battle within the formation dimension. There were countless mysteries within the formation dimension, one would be able to gain the support of the formation and grow stronger. This time around, the reason why the gambling battle was conducted within the formation diagram should have something to do with the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. The Sky Demon Oracle Bone was an extremely precious treasure for weaponsmithing. Naturally, weaponsmithing experts would be proficient in divine inscriptions and formations as well. In this case, even if one was weaker in terms of combat prowess, their proficiency in formations would be able to make up for it. Xiaoyu, Han Luo, Jiang Feng, and Zhao Yuyan stood at the front. The gazes of the crowd were all focused on them. These four were the ones with the highest hopes of obtaining the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. This was especially so for Zhao Yuyan. Her talent wasn't merely in terms of combat prowess. One talisman for each of you. Once you crush it, the energy of the formation would be activated. If you don't ignite it in time and die within the formation dimension, you will have to bear the consequences yourself. Also, for the sake of fairness, no one is allowed to use divine weapons or treasures within the formation dimension. After the experts from the Amorsi's residence verified the identities of these people, they started to give each of them a talisman. This talisman could be used to escape if they were defeated. Okay, all of you can enter the formation dimension. You will all appear in different locations. After distributing the talismans, the experts from the Amorsi's residence spoke to the crowd. After which, the crowd all stepped out, entering the formation dimension. The formation diagram in the air radiated resplendent light, directly enveloping the crowd within it. In just an instant, a world within the formation dimension appeared before the eyes of the crowd. At this moment, Qin Wentian appeared within the formation dimension. He stood on the ground as his perception instantly radiated outwards. Within his perception, he could see several silhouettes flashing rapidly. They didn't rush towards the others but were searching for the support of the formation dimension. Before this, Qin Wentian had naturally already inquired about the situation of the formation dimension. He knew that there were many methods to support one's strength within the formation dimension. His silhouette instantly flickered as well. A raging wind gusted by and an instant later, Qin Wentian stood at a certain location. Stepping out, runes of light flashed as a resplendent armor directly covered his body. Divine inscriptions circulated around it, resembling a true armor that contained a terrifying amount of energy. Since I can't move, I can only wait for death. It's useless. Qin Wentian directly gave up and continued fleeing. Very swiftly, he saw a silver bow floating in the air. The bow isn't bad. Qin Wentian's silhouette explosively shot out, transforming into a beam of light. In another direction, there was another person similarly rushing towards the bow. This person was none other than an old man with a cultivation base at the 5th level of celestial phenomenon, stronger compared to him. Bzz. A golden light flashed as a pair of wings appeared on Qin Wentian's back. He transformed into a beam of golden light as he directly grabbed towards the bow. Impudent. That old man from afar grabbed out with his palm as his arm expanded to 1,000 meters in length, smashing towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian abruptly changed directions as demonic qi towered up the skies. It was as though he had transformed into a true great rock as he sped away, not daring to clash head-on with that old man. Boom! That expert took great strides as he chased after Qin Wentian. Both of their speeds were extremely fast, yet Qin Wentian directly pulled the bowstring, infusing a terrifying fusion of true intense into it. Abruptly, he turned and shot an arrow towards that expert who was chasing after him. Peng, peng, peng. The space around them seemed as though it was about to be pierced through by that arrow. That old man who was chasing after Qin Wentian abruptly halted his steps. He stared at Qin Wentian's departing back and didn't continue his pursuit. The amplification of this bow isn't bad, it's considered a low-grade 5th-rank divine weapon and is able to raise my attack by 1 level. If it's used by 4th level ascendants and above, I'm afraid it wouldn't be of much use. Qin Wentian silently mused as he continued fleeing. On the way here, he didn't clash with those he met, choosing to directly evade them. In the end, he would be the only one remaining. What's the point of fighting now? Among those who participated in this gambling battle, his cultivation base could be considered one of the weaker ones. His cultivation base was only at the 2nd level of celestial phenomenon. Naturally, it wouldn't be wrong for him to keep a low profile. For a formation battle, the further the battle progressed, the more powerful the treasures and formations that appeared would be. For those with lower cultivation bases, it would be more advantageous. For example, a low-grade 5th-ranked treasure would be useless to experts at the upper 3rd level of celestial phenomenon. However, he was the exact opposite of Qin Wentian. Xiaoyu was incomparably tyrannical the moment he entered the formation dimension. He who was at the 5th level of celestial phenomenon directly activated his slaughter mode, killing as he went, kicking his opponents out. He even obtained a winged treasure that could augment his speed, allowing him to soar through the air above the formation dimension. When he saw someone, he would instantly swoop down. Those weaker ones didn't even have the time to crush the formation talismans and were directly killed by him. Xiaoyu and Han Luo are both at the 5th level of celestial phenomenon. Their killing methods are extremely powerful and no one could block them. Even ordinary 6th level ascendants wouldn't be a match for them. And among those who participated this time around, there were only a few 7th level ascendants. That black-robed old man is extremely powerful, at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. Jiang Feng, Xiao Yuyan, both of them are extremely powerful. And at the end, Xiao Yuyan's advantage would only grow even greater. Who is that fellow? He's so shameless, evading every time he meets someone. Such a person would actually waste his Yuan meteor stones to participate in the gambling battle. Someone noticed Qin Wentian as he spoke with suspicion. This was purely a waste of resources. There would only be one victor in the gambling battle, there was no use in evading. Still evading? How good at evading? The spectators couldn't help but to be speechless when they saw Qin Wentian evading again. And as time flowed by, very swiftly, there were only 40+ participants left in the formation dimension. That fellow who's proficient in escaping is actually still here. How speechless. As the number of participants decreased, Qin Wentian's fame grew. Every time he chose to evade, he would naturally attract the attention of the spectators. Jiang Feng, that fellow actually entered Jiang Feng's territory. He's finished. At this moment, many had expressions of joy on their faces. Jiang Feng discovered a treasure ground with a large area of effect, and Qin Wentian was about to enter his attack range. But at this moment, they saw Qin Wentian abruptly halting his steps as he turned and fled. Damn, isn't he too shameless? The spectators rolled their eyes. Jiang Feng has also sensed his existence and chased after him. Qin Wentian is dead for sure, Jiang Feng's speed is extremely fast. Within the formation dimension, Jiang Feng chased after Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian started to flee again, yet Jiang Feng's speed was extremely fast. He coldly snorted, "Cowardly rat, are you even worthy to participate in the formation battle?" As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian abruptly stopped at the peak of a mountain. He did not continue to flee. Chapter 747. Jiang Feng stood in the air, staring disdainfully at Qin Wentian as a mocking expression flashed in his eyes. I let you escape the first time I met you. Now you still want to avoid a battle. Do you want to scram out yourself or do you want me to kick you out? There was only one victor in a gambling battle. Was there any use in running away? Qin Wentian stared at Jiang Feng. He naturally could see through Jiang Feng's cultivation base. Jiang Feng was at the 4th level of celestial phenomenon, 2 levels higher than him. No wonder Jiang Feng dared to give up on the treasure ground to chase after him. Since you want to die, let me send you on your way then. Qin Wentian took out his bow. The spectators all had smiles on their faces, this shameless fellow was finally willing to fight head-on. Most probably, he knew he had no way to escape. Being kicked out by Jiang Feng wasn't too shameful. Jiang Feng's eyes flashed with coldness as he stared at Qin Wentian. Courting death. A terrifying destructive energy gushed forth from Jiang Feng. Resplendent astral light shone around him, transforming into terrifying spheres. The killing intent radiating from them caused the hearts of those who looked at him to tremble. Die! A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. The arrow shot out explosively, causing a stifling pressure to fill the air as it shot towards Jiang Feng. Die! Jiang Feng coldly snorted. A beam of light akin to a shooting star descended from the skies, directly colliding with the arrow. A terrifying formless shockwave abruptly gushed forth, causing the meteor-like beam of light to halt in midair. After which, the arrow shot out with a deafening boom, destroyed together with it. Jiang Feng's countenance stiffened. After which, he saw 9 arrows shooting over at the same time. They were like 9 shooting stars as a fearsome might gushed forth, capable of suppressing everything. This. Jiang Feng's eyes flickered with astonishment. This was a type of energy formed from the fusion of many types of true intents. Those 9 beams of light covered the entire space, wanting to destroy everything. Their destructive power was extremely terrifying. Boom! Jiang Feng released his constellation as terrifying meteors rained down from the skies, aiming for the 9 arrows. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The meteorites were constantly shattered. The 9 arrows were unstoppable. At this moment, Qin Wentian had already made his move. He left the mountain peak and walked towards Jiang Feng. Once again, his bow continued to shoot out terrifying arrows. Each arrow contained a destructive power that could destroy everything. A moment later, the crowd saw countless golden arrows flying towards Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng was exhausted from defending and had no strength to fight back. He was completely suppressed. This battle caused the crowd to be stunned. Qin Wentian had completely suppressed Jiang Feng with his bow and arrow. This made them feel that it was unreal. Jiang Feng's meteor-killing fist is extremely powerful. The crowd saw Jiang Feng once again unleash his meteor-killing fist. It was like a gigantic destructive meteor that could shatter everything, but it was all pierced through by the sharp arrow. Jiang Feng finally turned around and started to escape, fleeing towards the territory that he occupied. Is there any use in fleeing? Qin Wentian's voice drifted over from behind. After which, he drew his bow again but didn't shoot it out immediately. This time around, he infused the arrow with his strongest energy. The bowstring hummed as the arrow transformed into a beam of light, chasing after Jiang Feng. This arrow was truly capable of destroying everything. Jiang Feng's countenance turned pale. He directly took out a formation talisman and crushed it. With a flash of light, Jiang Feng's silhouette vanished from sight. The life-reaping arrow missed its target. The eyes of the spectators flickered unceasingly. Jiang Feng was chased out. Not only that, it was an overwhelming suppression. That bow and arrow must be extremely powerful, it must have augmented his attack power. Many people mused silently. Outside, Jiang Feng's silhouette appeared on the ground. His countenance was pale white and extremely unsightly to behold. He stared fixedly at Qin Wentian who was within the formation diagram. This time around, he had truly lost too much face. This wasn't simply a matter of him not obtaining the Sky Demon Oracle Bone, it was also because he was blasted out by a second-level ascendant. So many people had personally witnessed how he had no way to retaliate and was completely suppressed. Bastard! Jiang Feng stared at Qin Wentian only to see Qin Wentian actually flying towards the treasure ground he occupied not long ago. Evidently, Qin Wentian lured him to death for the sake of that treasure ground. Qin Wentian wasn't trying to flee but was trying to lure him out. Evidently, he had fallen for Qin Wentian's trap and was successfully lured to death by Qin Wentian. Within the formation dimension, Qin Wentian had already occupied the treasure ground Jiang Feng occupied not long ago. It was a divine inscription's grand formation, a giant formation. He tested the might of the formation and it was sufficient to amplify his strength by 2 levels. Jiang Feng was in a hurry to seize the limelight and eliminate the others. Hence, he chose to pursue Qin Wentian. But Qin Wentian was different. His cultivation base was weaker but he had to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle Bone no matter what. Hence, he chose to wait patiently within the formation dimension. Not long after, a 4th-level ascendant appeared before Qin Wentian. His eyes flickered as he stared at Qin Wentian. After which, he took a step forward and made a grabbing motion in the direction of Qin Wentian. Rumble, Qin Wendian instantly activated the formation dimension. Resplendent shadow runes flashed as an incomparably gigantic shadow actually appeared above Qin Wendian. This was none other than the shadow formed from Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian similarly made a grabbing motion in the air. That shadow's actions were exactly the same as Qin Wendian. Resplendent astral runes circulated around its gigantic palms as it smashed downwards like a millstone. With a thunderous boom, that person who appeared was directly slammed into the ground as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. "Get out!" Qin Wendian roared. That person understood that Qin Wendian had shown mercy. Hence, he crushed the talisman and directly exited the area. How powerful, could it be that he was concealing his strength? The spectators outside started to discuss. From the start, this person had always been shameless, but he suddenly became so domineering. There's nothing strange about it. His cultivation base is at the second level of celestial phenomenon and he can be considered one of the more powerful geniuses at this level. The formation in that treasure ground can amplify the strength of an opponent by 2 levels. It's only normal for him to be able to destroy a 4th level ascendant with a single strike. Jiang Feng coldly spoke. His arrows shouldn't be any weaker compared to this formation. Yet, he actually lured me out to fight. What a sinister fellow. Seems like luck is good and Jiang Feng was too careless. The spectators silently mused. Naturally, Qin Wendian still had the strength to back it up. His shameless tactics were indeed effective, but it was still impossible for him to walk all the way to the end. Only 13 people remain. How fast? The spectators stared at the formation dimension. That 7th level ascendant black-robed young man was so powerful. There was also Xiaoyu and Han Luo. All of them were extremely terrifying and had already kicked many people out. Qin Wendian stood at his original location, he wasn't in a hurry. After that, no one else appeared before Qin Wendian until only 9 people remained. Han Luo then started to move in the direction of Qin Wendian. This time around, he's in deep trouble. Han Luo personally approached him and right now, Han Luo still hasn't obtained a suitable divine weapon. Although he encountered the augmentation formation, he didn't rely on it to stay at his original location. Given his cultivation base and combat prowess, there's no need for that. Han Luo's cultivation base is at the 5th level of celestial phenomenon. He should be able to fight evenly against 6th level ascendants. Han Luo continued moving in the direction of Qin Wendian and finally discovered Qin Wendian's existence. Very swiftly, he appeared in the airspace above Qin Wendian as an expression of bewilderment appeared on his face. Back then when Qin Wendian registered, he had already paid attention to him. To think that Qin Wendian hadn't been kicked out yet. Boom! Han Luo stepped out. His step seemed to contain the force of millions of jin, causing the entire space to tremble as a fearsome pressure bore down from the heavens, blasting towards Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian borrowed the augmentation from the formation. His gigantic shadow appeared once more as he blasted out with his palms, causing an explosive sound to echo out in the air. What a powerful pressure! Qin Wendian silently mused. After which, a terrifying rumbling sound rang out as Han Luo's body actually grew taller. His body that was over 10 meters tall resembled a primordial giant as he stared down at Qin Wendian with disdain. Step by step, he stomped downwards as a supreme pressure crushed down on Qin Wendian. Even with the augmentation from the formation, Qin Wendian still felt a stifling pressure. Even with the augmentation from the formation, you are still not my opponent. Get out! Han Luo stomped down once more. Qin Wendian stared at the silhouette in the air as a terrifying runic glow circulated around his body. His eyes turned demonic as a towering demonic might gushed forth from him. Rumble! A thunderous boom rang out. Qin Wendian's body grew gigantic, manifesting tens of thousands of shadows. With the augmentation from the formation, numerous gigantic shadows of Qin Wendian appeared in the air, resembling fiend gods. Terrifying runic light circulated around their bodies, as though they could destroy everything. Suppress! Thunderous roars reverberated through the heavens and earth. Tens of millions of welcoming voices roared at the same time, shaking the heavens and shaking the earth. Terrifying heaven-suppressing palm imprints blasted out crazily. Tens of millions of such palm imprints simply destroyed everything. Han Luo's gigantic body stiffened. After which, a fearsome might erupted forth from him, trampling the heavens and earth. Both of his palms blasted out in rage, manifesting an incomparably gigantic earth shield. Rumbling sounds rang out as the earth shield shattered apart. Han Luo howled in rage. It was as though he had 3 heads and 6 arms. His palms blotted out the skies, covering his entire body. Only palm shadows remained, unceasingly defending against the incoming attacks. What a terrifying might! The spectators in the outside world were completely dumbfounded. They only saw Han Luo withstanding over 1,000 attacks before he finally had no choice but to shatter the formation talisman, directly exiting the formation. Countless palm imprints soared up the skies, causing the spectators to be in a daze. Everything happened in an extremely short period of time, but that shameless-looking young man actually relied on the augmentation from the formation to forcefully blast Han Luo out, kicking him out of the formation. How powerful! Someone exclaimed in admiration. This fellow is definitely a hidden genius. He's actually so strong. Although his cultivation base is only at the 2nd level of celestial phenomenon, he's definitely a genius that can jump levels to fight. The spectators were all stunned. Could it be that this battle was purely based on the augmentation from the formation? Clearly, it was impossible. That was his true combat prowess. Chapter 748. Truly a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Even Han Luo was forced out. This 2nd level ascendant has always been concealing his strength and only erupted out now. The spectators outside the dimension were all extremely shocked. This was too powerful. Only to see that outside the formation diagram, Han Luo stood there in a daze. After which, he turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian, who was inside the dimension. Who? I was actually eliminated. Han Luo was speechless. Also, even before the final battle, he was already kicked out. Not only that, he was kicked out by someone who wasn't that famous in the worry-free city. If Qin Wentian was famous, he would definitely be acquainted with him. Could it be that Qin Wentian was a newly risen genius? This was possible. The worry-free city was extremely vast and there were many sects within it. For some geniuses at the Heavenly Dipper realm, their talent would be revealed the moment they stepped into the celestial phenomenon realm. Earlier, Qin Wentian's attack, regardless of whether it was the might of his innate technique or the power of his attack, they were all extremely powerful. He must have fused several types of true intense together. Seems like I underestimated him. Han Luo shook his head and smiled bitterly. He didn't hate Qin Wentian as much as Jiang Feng did. He was forced out because his skill was inferior to Qin Wentian. Although it was somewhat embarrassing, he had discovered a genius. Within the dimension, the scene changed unpredictably. The number of spectators grew fewer and fewer. Some of the divine weapons and augmentation formations inside are getting stronger and stronger. Xia Yu and Zhao Yuyan have both found the augmentation formations. Also, Xia Yu seems to be meeting with that black-robed young man. The spectators outside could clearly see the situation within the dimension. And indeed, not long after, the two of them encountered each other. Zhao Yuyan is heading towards that young man. The spectators saw that Zhao Yuyan was also heading in the direction of Qin Wentian. There was a high possibility that they would encounter each other. Seems like things were getting more and more interesting. Zhao Yuyan seems to have obtained a treasure that can augment her attacks. I wonder how much strength does it give her? She who is only at the 4th level of celestial phenomenon might not be able to defeat that young man. At this moment, the confidence the spectators had in Zhao Yuyan was no longer that great. Qin Wentian had just kicked out Han Luo, who was at the 5th level of celestial phenomenon. Although Han Luo's cultivation base was higher than Zhao Yuyan's, he directly chose to kill his way towards Qin Wentian. Hence, he was at a disadvantage. Zhao Yuyan had obtained a treasure in the dimension, it was just that no one knew how strong it was exactly. Qin Wentian was still quietly waiting at the same spot. No one had found this place, but Qin Wentian wasn't disappointed at all. This meant that there were fewer and fewer people in the formation dimension, which meant that he had a higher chance of becoming the final winner. What he wanted was the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. He didn't care about the opinions of others. But at this moment, Qin Wentian's perception sensed someone approaching. It was none other than the beautiful maiden who attracted the attention of many earlier, Zhao Yuyan. It was rumored that she was a genius from the Golden Armor sect. Zhao Yuyan similarly discovered Qin Wentian. Her silhouette flickered as she sped over, arriving before Qin Wentian in an instant. Bzz. Her dainty figure directly lunged towards Qin Wentian. Resplendent astral light illuminated the entire space as her constellation floated in the air. A terrifying augmentation light flashed, causing the constellation to grow even more resplendent. From the constellation, countless astral shackles blasted out, bringing with them terrifying whistling sounds as they blasted towards Qin Wentian. It was very hard to imagine that such a beautiful maiden would suddenly erupt forth with such a terrifying might during combat. Not only that, she didn't waste any words and directly acted, wanting to blast Qin Wentian out of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. She, Zhao Yuyan, had to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. Nobody would be able to obstruct her footsteps. The terrifying astral shackles coiled over, resembling fearsome arrows. Originally, the attack power was already terrifying. In addition to the augmentation, it was even more terrifying. Qin Wentian had already activated the augmentation power of the formation. His body was gigantic, the shadow of his shadow grew even more majestic, resembling a gigantic mountain. He lifted his millstone-like palm and blasted it out. Walala, the millions of astral shackles swung about, as though they had eyes of their own. They actually coiled around that incomparably gigantic millstone-like palm imprint, locking it in place. After which, rumbling sounds rang out as the countless astral shackles slammed into the gigantic palm imprint, directly destroying it. In addition, these astral shackles didn't only attack in a single direction. They shot out in all directions, aiming for Qin Wentian who was on the ground. How violent! The spectators outside the dimension felt their hearts trembling when they saw this scene. Not only for this battle, the battle between Xiaoyu and the black-robed man had also begun, and the might of their battle was even more terrifying than before. Bzzz. Qin Wentian similarly released his constellation. Sword chi shook the heavens, exploding forth at the same time when the astral shackles shot over like lightning. Countless sharp swords manifested, blasting out in all directions, wanting to destroy everything, directly clashing against the boundless astral shackles. Zhao Yuyan stepped towards Qin Wentian, continuing her pressure. Her eyes were cold, akin to sharp blades that could pierce through the eyes of those who saw it. Die! Another gigantic constellation manifested, exuding a boundless sharpness. This was a terrifying silver light, a true silver light of slaughter. Qin Wentian manifested once more. His demonic eyes stared at Zhao Yuyan as he unleashed his Dreamworld constellation. Sword light blotted out the skies, sweeping over everything, causing the entire space to feel as though it was about to explode apart. Bzzz. Zhao Yuyan's silhouette vanished, she was directly flung towards the location of Qin Wentian's true body. After which, an indomitable long spear directly shot towards Qin Wentian's true body. That silvery white long spear couldn't be seen clearly, only a beam of silver light could be seen. At the same time, the astral shackles shot out, wrapping around Qin Wentian. Fast, too fast. The speed of this long spear was so fast that it caused people to be shocked. Zhao Yuyan's eyes flickered with an extremely resolute light. Qi! The long spear directly pierced into Qin Wentian's body, directly shattering into pieces. Zhao Yuyan's beautiful eyes flashed, evidently what she pierced wasn't Qin Wentian's true body, it was merely an afterimage. The astral shackles frenziedly swept upwards, enveloping this entire space. Zhao Yuyan inclined her head, her beautiful eyes gleaming with a silver light. Rumble. Qin Wendian stepped out, suppressing the heavens and earth. A supreme suppressive force erupted forth, causing the frenzied astral shackles to turn sluggish. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the external world, terrifying sounds rang out. Those astral shackles seemed to be frozen. The rattling sounds continued, but it was exceptionally slow. Even the trajectories of their movements could be seen clearly. Zhao Yuyan frowned, she could also feel an extremely powerful suppressive force on her body. Resplendent runic light radiated from Qin Wendian's true body. Rumble. In the external world, an even more shocking suppressive force appeared. The astral shackles were completely immobilized, and after which, rattling sounds rang out. This entire space abruptly opened up. Those astral shackles that sealed this space were all shattered. In the air, Qin Wendian's gigantic shadow radiated a fearsome suppressive might. Close combat. Courting death. Qin Wendian coldly snorted. His gigantic silhouette stomped downwards as numerous gigantic golden silhouettes appeared in the air, descending from the heavens, unceasingly slamming into this space. Pooh! Zhao Yuyan groaned in misery as she coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. Each and every one of those golden silhouettes was like a terrifying immortal or devil, able to suppress this entire space. They were the rulers of this space. Chains! Zhao Yuyan shouted. The light radiating from her body illuminated the sky as a terrifying augmentation force was unleashed. The astral shackles rained down unceasingly, but it was useless, they couldn't break through the suppressive force at all. The rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly, the pressure Zhao Yuyan endured grew stronger and stronger as she coughed out blood unceasingly. She stared at the golden silhouettes as her countenance turned pale. Did she really have to die here? Scram! Qin Wendian roared in rage as he stomped down. Zhao Yuyan's legs softened as though she couldn't withstand the pressure. Her beautiful eyes were as resolute as ever as she stared at Qin Wendian in the air. However, she took out a formation talisman and with a look of trepidation on her face, she crushed the talisman. With a flash of light, she directly vanished from sight. Zhao Yuyan was eliminated as well. This fellow is so powerful, even Xiaoyu won. If it wasn't for Xiaoyu's heaven-defying strength, this young man might really have obtained the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. The spectators outside the formation dimension mused. Right now, there were only 4 people remaining. At this moment, they only saw Qin Wendian's silhouette flickering as he directly gave up on the formation dimension. How intelligent. Seems like he also knows that the augmentation from this formation isn't enough and chose to search for a stronger place. Qin Wendian continued to roam the formation dimension as his perception extended outwards. He didn't encounter anyone else and he naturally understood that there shouldn't be many people left in the formation dimension. Also, Zhao Yuyan was already very strong earlier. What he needed now was to find a source of augmentation that could allow him to grow even stronger. If not, he would definitely not be the final victor. The further one went, the more dangerous it would be. Qin Wendian passed by an ancient mountain peak. His silhouette flickered as he flew past it. However, not long after, his steps halted as he turned and headed back. Qin Wendian stared at that ancient mountain peak, only to see a human-shaped gigantic rock there. His silhouette flickered as he directly rushed into it. Not long after, rumbling sounds rang out as Qin Wendian exited from within, clad in resplendent golden light. I almost didn't discover you. A smile appeared on Qin Wendian's face. After that, he stomped on the ground and with a deafening boom, the mountain peak directly crumbled apart as a terrifying fissure appeared in the middle. He stepped out and soared into the air. With a roar of rage, his voice reverberated through the entire formation dimension as he rushed forward with incredible speed. He's attracting people over. The people outside the formation dimension felt their hearts trembling. This fellow was so crazy, did he obtain an even stronger augmentation technique? He actually managed to find the augmentation technique hidden within the mountain peak. Most probably, ordinary people wouldn't be able to find it. From afar, a silhouette soared up into the air, rushing towards Qin Wentian. This person was 2 meters tall and resembled a giant. He transformed into a terrifying beam of light as he rushed towards Qin Wentian. Scram! Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms as a terrifying palm imprint blasted out. With a deafening boom, that person's bones were directly shattered as he crushed the formation talisman and fled. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian showing mercy, that person would have already died. Qin Wentian continued forward, searching for others in the formation dimension to kill, incomparably tyrannical.